styles. Can I ask you something? Do you really like working on cane stuff?
You really like busting people?
Yeah. I bust frauds, I bust phonies. I love it.
Have you ever busted anyone you know?
Yeah, I tried it. Didn't make any difference. See, in my business, you soon find out that anybody's capable of anything. Think of it, they've done it.
Doesn't leave you much to believe in.
Yeah, but think of the upside. It doesn't leave you too much to be disappointed in either. The sooner we're off the planet, the better.
Now you sound like Kane. You really like busting people?
I bust frauds, I bust phonies. I love it. Soon find out that anybody's capable of anything. You should think of it, they've done it.
Doesn't leave you much to believe in.
Yeah, but think of the upside. At least it doesn't leave you too much to be disappointed in either. The sooner we're off the planet, the better.
Now you sound like Kane.
No, not me. You're the cane lover.
I just like being scared.
All right, we almost ready. Let's go. Come on. Tracks courtesy of our friend Rooks G out there. Rooks G, shouts out to Rooks G, ROOXG. Hands up. Just about ready out there. Hope everybody's having a good Sunday night. Let's go. Love it. Winner so far tonight, Amtown, $20 PayPal. Thank you so much. Love you. All right, let's go. Let's go. What's up? Hey, y'all. Long time, long time, long time. No hear from me. Hope everybody's all right. Hey, have a good Sunday night. Tonight we're gonna chill. We got it really chill tonight. We're gonna talk about the movie Barbie. Okay, the Greta Gerwig movie that just came out because it's obviously huge. I mean, there's no movies being made right now, and Barbieheimer has just come out, and shouts out. First of all, shouts out to my good friends out there, Maddie and Lukeski. I love you too. And we were supposed to go to Philly to see this movie, but things happen in life, and so wasn't able to make it. But I did see the film today, and honestly, I'm waiting for. I can't wait to talk to my friend Luke because I know he is just going to go crazy over this movie because there's so much in it. I mean, it's multi-layered. I'm surprised by the film. Okay, so let me start over. So first of all, let's get this out of the way. That this movie, as I said in the introduction to the stream, I mean, here in the video description, this movie has everything that you expected to have. Okay, all the stuff. It's got it all. So once you just once you just know that it's going to have all that stuff, you're not going to be shocked or surprised or any of that stuff. I mean, it's not. Of course, it's going to have that, but you know, I, I think that we got to have fun, right? We got to have fun with something, and I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure that this is the movie. This is the movie for that, but I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be so badly because there's so much. Uh, there's so much darkness in the world right now, and obviously, I'm not going to get my relief from the darkness from Barbie movie or any of that. But in terms of the artistic expression and some of the things in the movie, I was looking forward to it, and there is a lot in this movie. All right, so also, my other main point is the memes are alive because, fellas, you will you will catch yourself saying during the movie multiple times, "He's me. He's literally me." Many, many times in this movie. By the way, I got my Dahmer. I just felt like wearing my Dahmer drip glasses. I don't wear glasses. But I felt like wearing my fake Dahmer drip glasses tonight, so, uh, um, anyway, so, yeah, it's pretty crazy. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna talk about the film. It's not a review. I'm gonna try and do as deep of a dive as I can, um, after a one viewing, experience, and I'm gonna go into the various parts of the movie and discuss, uh the differences between what I expected and what came out of it. And also the messages, of course it has a message, but I I was talking to our friend Maddie here, other Maddie, from Digital Minefield here, and before the stream, and I actually said at one point, because he asked me a very astute question. He said, "Does it have all of the stuff that the people are freaking out about? Is that in the film?" And I actually said at that point, I said, "No." Because at that point in the film, it didn't. Now it does get into that. It does. The movie does go pretty heavy on the messages, but at that point in the film, it was just kind of like I don't know. The other thing I'll say about this is, it's clear it is what I expected in this sense. It's not a kids movie. Okay. I don't even know if it's marketed as a kids movie. I mean, which is ironic because it's about a doll, right? But it's obvious to anyone sort of who knows film or knows, just from looking at the aesthetics and all that, that it is what'd you say, Jonah Hill? What'd you say about you said Jonah Hill. Uh. Jonah Hill asked, "Hey, guess what? Peace out. Peace out. See you. Bye. Bye. Get the fuck out. Yeah. Bye. Hold on, let me take care of this. Let me take care of this, dude. Um, okay. Yeah. Peace. Peace." All right. So anyway, the movie is exactly what I expected in the sense that um, it's not a kids movie. It is for grown people. And it is kind of yeah, that threw me off a little bit. Motherfucker. All right, so peace out. Sorry, I'm trying not to cuss. I'm trying not to cuss. I'm trying to be sweet. I'm trying to be nice since we're talking about a Barbie movie. Um, but listen, it's not a kids movie. It is and it is an existential sort of postmodern, post ironic film. And Toledo says there's no adult content in the film, but the messages are definitely for adults. It's definitely for it's interesting because the people who make this movie, like, they ordinarily don't do satire. They don't do satire correctly. I mean, but what is interesting is that it's, it's funny. It is funny. I mean, there's a lot in the movie that's funny and that you can take away and you can sort of enjoy. All right, so should we just talk about what the movie's about? All right, so here's what happens. First of all, the movie is, Kubrickian in the sense that it begins, with the narration of Helen Mirren, and Helen Mirren, it reminds me of if you guys ever seen, Democracy not Democracy Now, Documentary Now, great, great series on what's it? I don't know what it's on now, but, Documentary Now has, um, what is it? Shitbird Valley with Owen Wilson, and it's a satire on the documentary films. And it's narrated by Helen Mirren, and Helen Mirren is kind of the I don't know, now she's like the go-to person for she's the female version really of Morgan Freeman's narration, um, in terms of films, and she begins the film by talking about something that's absolutely true, which is that in the beginning, in terms of, the life of these dolls, there was, there was a there were baby dolls. It was just baby dolls, and I know this because I have a little sister, and I clearly remember, you know, when I was a kid and, she's 6 years younger than I am, and I was playing with, my GI Joes and stuff, and with see, back in the '80s, one thing that was cool back in the '80s is that the toy guns looked like guns, right? And they had to actually they had to change the way that toy guns looked because people were robbing banks and stuff with the toy guns. I had, like, a toy Uzi and a toy, MAC-10 and a toy shotgun, and I would just play in the woods and, play war and stuff. But my little sister, played with doll babies, and she, had, like, a little stroller and, that's, like, what little girls do, I guess. And she had, Barbies too. But what it talks about in the movie at the beginning is we see the the, uh, the beginning desert landscape of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and we see, these little girls, and they're playing with their doll babies. Now, all of a sudden, we're introduced to Barbie, who is standing there like an Anunnaki in the sort of lunar landscape, and she's obviously supposed to be the monolith, so she's a monolithic figure because then we get Thus Spake Zarathustra and the dawn of, the modern age with the doll. Now the movie is interesting because it ends up being a sort of history of Barbie and what Barbies represent in terms of dolls, okay, and all that stuff. But the thing to keep in mind is that, um, the narrative that takes place is all from the point of view and this actually comes into reality in the film of these people who are Barbies. All the women are named Barbie and all the guys are named Ken, and then there's an Alan. I don't know. But I guess Alan was Ken's friend. But they are living in this Barbie world. They're living in their Barbie world. It's like the Aqua video. But when changes start to take place with Barbie, um, it's because she's being manipulated by a human as she finds out that there is a uh, there's an Oppenheimer uh, membrane that exists in the space-time continuum between the Barbie world and the real world, and that they are aware of this, but they sort of aren't aware, but then they become more aware. And so the existential crisis of the movie is that the alpha Barbie, who is what's her face, who I like. I like her. I think she's really good in this movie. I'll get to that in a second. But they she basically has to she starts to become aware of her own existence. And this is interesting because there's some sort of you want to say deep philosophical layers in the film, and there are some interesting dichotomies in the movie. Um, and there's one point where one of the Barbies even says he's able to have a logical mind on the one hand and emotion on the other hand, and have the two coexist. And I thought that that was interesting. I didn't expect that sort of depth in the movie. I'm not sure that that's deep, but, but I didn't expect that sort of language. But then as the film goes on, you begin to go, "Okay, now I do expect it." Because, by the way, a lot of the movie becomes about the fact that, uh, that when it's about the patriarchy is mentioned many, many times, towards the end of the movie. It's almost like a loaded term keyword that keeps popping up. And it eventually turns out that they are sort of fighting and battling against the patriarchy, but what ends up happening is that they just supplant it with the matriarchy, and it goes back and forth, and there's no sort of complexity in their world. Also, the movie also ends up being Gnostic, of course, because at the end of the film, so spoilers, obviously, but at the end of the film, Barbie meets her creator, and her creator is the literal creator of the Barbie doll. But it's interesting because the way that she appears is obviously supposed to be it's obviously supposed to be biblical, right? But I would take it lightly. I wouldn't it's not making I don't want it to make some sort of grand statement about, a paradigm of existence because you got to keep in mind it's about dolls. So what the movie really is um it's a sort of it's a movie about a rite of passage because one of the things about the emotional depth of the movie, because obviously it's gonna be complete surface level, it's about dolls. It becomes this ironic thing because you're talking about Barbie and women don't wanna be seen as Barbie dolls. But what you have to keep in mind is that the it represents a time and a place where little girls are gonna play with dolls, right? And then they're gonna grow older, and they're not gonna play with them anymore. So, they're gonna grow up, and so they have to find their own way, and that's normal, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But it's the pain of the loss of your innocence, of this sort of, um, Edenic world where all the Barbies live, which is true in the sense that it represents when we're all little and we don't have anything to worry about and we're in the innocence of childhood and we're all just, whatever. So I thought that was interesting. That's where some of the emotional pain in the movie comes from. And I think that what's her face? You guys, what's the name of the actress? Who's the lady who plays Barbie? Right. The Duchess from Wolf of Wall Street. The Australian girl. She's good. I like her. She's good because uh she is supposed to be Margot Robbie, thank you. She's supposed to be the perfect woman, because she's playing Barbie and all that stuff. I'm gonna say the word Barbie like 10 million times during the stream. But she's sad, and I've talked about this before in streams where we talked about actors and how all of acting is in the face, right? It's in the eyes. And with her, when I look at her, I was thinking, is it just me? Am I being totally emo here watching this movie and I'm seeing a sadness in her eyes? And it turns out it's not just me. I mean, she really is like that. And that's the whole point of the movie because she's trying to figure out why she has these feelings. And okay, so we see the um we see the landscape at the beginning and it's 2001 Space Odyssey and it's Kubrickian and we see the dawn of Barbie and and it sort of gives us a brief exposition about who Barbie is and what the doll represents. And then we go into Barbie world. And this is cool because it's like it's funny for about 30 minutes and it's like it's kind of it goes on for too long. The movie goes on for too long. But all the guys are named Ken, obviously, but they are represented by all races, and there's two alpha Kens, and this is interesting politically because there is there's a Chad Ken who's Ryan Gosling, and then there's the Chad Asian Ken who is this other dude, and they are rivals, right? And then we see all these other types of Kens, and then we see Barbie, and there Barbie is represented by all the different types of ladies or whatever, right? But when they're all talking at one point, she says something like, um, they're like, "Oh," they're talking about all the things that they love about Barbie World, and then all of a sudden, Margot Robbie says something like, "I'm starting to have reoccurring thoughts of death," and this is interesting because on the one hand, we expect this from a kind of hipster, post-ironic, not really even post-ironic, a hipster ironic holdover version of 90s films from, like, Greta Gerwig, the director, and the other writer of the film, who is, Noah by the way, a man also wrote the film, Noah Baumbach, right? The guy who wrote, Squid and the Whale and all that. But we sort of expect that sort of line, and you're thinking, is this just a line that is thrown in to kind of, you know, say what's up to, the sort of thinking adults in the audience? But again, it's an adult movie because the audience of the movie is sort of a character in the movie because it's about, um, it's for on the one hand, it's mainly for women, right? Of course, who played with Barbie dolls and are now adults. And the message, of course, is going to be something like, uh, what does Barbie represent, and is it harmful to the image that women are supposed to have of themselves? And I, it's difficult because I'm not really sure that the movie figures out what it wants. It doesn't really figure out what kind of movie it wants, what it wants its consistent message to be. And I don't, movies and works of art and literature don't have to have message. It doesn't have to be didactic or teachy. Of course, this movie is going to be teachy, but this one has a kind of variety of messages, and um, it doesn't really work at times. But it's funny because after she says that, but she starts to notice like little things about herself. Like she's not always, happy and whatever. And then this thing happens where she's with her girls and she says, she like gets out of bed and she puts her feet on the ground and all of a sudden she walks like not on her tiptoes. And she says to the girls, like, "Oh, this thing happened. Look at my feet." And she shows them and the girls freak out and they say flat feet. And it's kind of funny at the time. But this is what I'm talking about where the whole movie is based around what children would say and think about when they were playing with the dolls, but in a real life scenario in the life of the film. So, like, for instance, you can imagine that over the years, many girls who play with Barbies wonder why she's always on her tiptoes. I guess that's a thing. Why are her feet always pointing down? Right? Why can't you manipulate her like muscles or whatever? because she's a doll. Well, they start to become self-aware. They start to become self-aware. This is interesting because with all the stuff happening with AI right now, and it's like this is another form of a kind of pre-AI. And that is also interesting because we saw the thing in at the beginning of the film with 2001: A Space Odyssey. We see the, uh, the monolith of Barbie, and in the end, the film is just by the way, it's just another Pinocchio story. Remember how AI, artificial intelligence, the movie, was a Kubrick movie, and then it became a Spielberg movie, and it's about a Daryl, right? A data analyzing robot youth life form who is a Trilogy of Terror 2 with Bobby, right? "Bobby never liked you, mommy. He died and he sent me back instead." Remember that movie? So it's a demon golem who comes back to replace the real child. Well, uh, in, AI, we have the child who dies in the family, and so they bring back the lifelike humanoid AI system, and then that becomes self-aware and, wants to be a real boy essentially, right? I mean, that's I know I'm sort of simplifying it, but that's what happens, and it's the same thing that happens in this. And so part of the like Gnostic thing in the movie is when she goes and she meets the creator at the end of the movie, who is Ruth Gordon or whatever her name was that created the Barbie. I don't know. And I liked it. By the way, there is a thing about Barbie where as a fella, I don't know if anybody else out there thinks this, but every time I think of the name Barbie, I wonder, uh, what is this and who is this name for? And they actually make a point of explaining. She says, "My name is Ruth Gordon," or whatever her name is. And I'm the creator of Barbie. And I designed Barbie and named her after my daughter Barbara. And I think, is that true? 'Cause I kind of think, in the 1950s and paperclip, that you might have named your Barbie after this guy, right? Right, which would be a terrible, terrible irony, right? I'm not going to show that symbol, but it's the book is about this one's called The Butcher of Lyon, and it's about the infamous uh, German meanie man named Klaus Barbie. Hello, and this one is called this one's called Klaus Barbie, The Butcher of Lyon. It's actually two different books, but these are the story. One's by Brendan Murphy, one's by Tom Bauer. These are excellent books, by the way, because they are about the Butcher of Lyon, who was a an infamous SS torturer in and wiped out a whole village in Lyon, and then he was co-opted by Paperclip and sent to South America. This is true, and he was set up as a shipping magnate. He became a shipping magnate and a cocaine trafficker in South America for the CIA, and they used him because in the post World War II era of the Cold War, the United States, as it says in the book, needed um, people that were experts in sourcing out communists, I guess. So, who better to choose for them than this guy? So they just gave him a new life and put him in the. But he was eventually captured by the people, those people hunters. Um, but I thought that was funny that she points that out in the movie. And so anyway, it's all clouds and pink fluffy clouds, and there's a lot of this movie that is kind of it's like it's set in it would be perfect for a hyper pop, hypercolor Gagosian Gallery, New York, Corey Archangel multimedia art exhibit because it's very it's what you would imagine it to be. It's like it's very pink and it's hyper colored and it's like lots of Chanel and Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt actually did the score for the movie. Great soundtrack, excellent soundtrack. But it's very not synth wavy, but it has that kind of aesthetic, almost like a pre vaporwave aesthetic. So of course it's like that, but it ends up being a pretty a kind of ugly in the sense that it's oversaturation, right? It's oversaturated, and it's supposed to be like that, I think. Yes. Um, but So anyway, she has flat feet and she's wondering why I have this. So she go this thus begins the journey of the movie, and she is sent on her trip to find on her odyssey to find the first person along the journey in her sort of hero's journey who can tell her about herself. So she's sent to Weird Barbie. Thought this part was good because she's sent to Weird Barbie, and I didn't even know the cast of this movie, but I knew that um that Kate McKinnon was going to be the Weird Barbie. It just made so much sense to me. And guess what? I was right. So she goes up to Weird Barbie and they say, Weird Barbie? Who's Weird Barbie? Oh, she's the one who the girls played with too much. They played with her too hard. And this was pretty perfect because, you see this, like, this made me think of like Kathleen Hanna Bikini Kill or something. Um, and actually, Kate McKinnon looks like she should have been played by Sia. You remember Sia? Because she's even got like the same face paint sort of makeup, and she's got like a Illuminate confirmed circle around one eye, and she's got short blonde, kind of pixie punky hair, and her legs, of course, the hallmark is that her legs are set in a permanent, she's doing the splits because because they show sort of a vision. She gives her a vision into the real world, and it's a vision of a little girl who, by this point, I guess, is almost a tween, and who, take cuts the hair on her Barbie, paints the face, does the splits, and then throws her. And so that's what happens to them when they get played with too hard. They start to degrade, right? Now, this is interesting, and this is a pretty deep part of the movie for me because it reminded me of a couple things. One, it reminded me of um, what was it? Okay, first of all, remember when we covered the play The Crucible, right? Shouts out to The Crucible right there. Shouts out to Rachel. By the way, Rachel and Jamie are going to cover this movie on Thursday, and I just I'm so interested to see their analysis of this movie because this movie is like this is perfect for them to cover. I mean, both of them have written books about this. And this is their subject matter. So, they're gonna tear apart this movie. I just cannot wait to see it. They're gonna have a different take than I have, a slightly different take, I'm sure, but, they're gonna shouts out to, our homegirls, Rachel, Based Homeschool Mom, and Jamie. So, um, what was I saying? They get a glimpse into the, other world where they're playing with this doll and they overplay it, but it made me think of the Crucible play because remember that the the plot of the play hinges on Elizabeth Proctor being set up for, for allegations of witchcraft because the stupid servant girl does Abigail's bidding and places the puppet in her home. And there's this whole scene in the play about, um, "Oh, uh, what's this, Goody Proctor?" "Oh, nothing, it's just a puppet. It's just a puppet." They don't speak like that in the film because it's American, it's set in Puritan New England, but I like to think that they talk that way. "It's just a puppet. It's nothing. I'm a grown woman. It's just a puppet." Puppet is a puppet or a doll baby. And, Hale, the Reverend Hale, who's the, investigator in the thing. We've seen 2 Hales, by the way. Um, there was a Hale who was the bad guy in Killers of the Flower Moon, and then there's a Reverend Hale in The Crucible. But anyway, Hale says, "Oh, well, you just got a puppet. That's all right. Don't matter, it's a little weird because we're Puritans, and you're not supposed to have these devil things here. But what was this?" And then basically she says, "Oh, nothing. It's just a puppet." But then remember that during the trial, um, they talk about how they found a voodoo doll or a puppet, which functions as a voodoo doll in this sense, with a sewing pin stuck in the abdomen. And when that happens, I think it's Abigail bends over in pain, because it's, invested with the spirit of her because she claims that she could send her spirit out of her body, right? So, um, you know, so that's one instance of the puppet playing a sort of weird inhabited spiritual role in which the life of the community hinges on being hanged. And that doesn't occur in this movie. I think that they probably would go too far, or if they thought they would go too far, if they did that. But I mean, you know that girls were hanging their the Barbies, right? Um, in fact, oftentimes in classrooms, uh when students will do like presentations of the Crucible, they will use Barbies as representations of hanged women in the Crucible. Remember, they're hanged and not burned. So anyway, the other thing, what's the other thing? The other thing is that in in King Lear, remember, King Lear makes a point of saying, um, "We are but playthings to the gods; they kill us for their sport." Right, and so that is Barbie's fear in this movie that she is she has no life of her own and that just being played with or play they're aware at some point that they are being played with by human beings in the real world, but then at another point it becomes the Pinocchio story of where she wants to um represent all the good things that she thinks she stands for and not to be squashed like a bug or a fly. So anyway, she meets with Kate McKinnon. Kate McKinnon tells her, "Yeah, you got to go. There's been a rip in the space time membrane between Barbie world and the real world." And so she starts off on her odyssey to figure out uh, what that is. And also, Ken. Let's talk about Ken for a second. So, let me get another Red Bull real quick. I already crossed that. So, first of all, Ken. My friend Luke did a lot of, he does a lot of research into this stuff. And Ken, what does Ken mean? Well, remember that we talked about when I did the analysis of Beowulf, by especially the one by Seamus Heaney. I talked about there's a lot of Anglo-Saxon and Old English Anglo-Saxon language that he uses within the poem. And one of these is the word Ken. And Ken is a kind of, understanding. It means like an understanding or a knowledge. Also, we have kith and ken, and then in one of the, poetic functions of the poem is the kenning, and a kenning is a two-word expression for a longer expression, or even, sometimes a shorter one, but one that's used, um so for instance, like, you see this a lot in Tolkien, or token. And like, so for instance, it'll be like instead of sword, it'll be like monster slayer, right? So monster slayer, two-word phrase separated by a dash. And that's interesting because Ken's whole existence, his problem in this movie is that he, at the beginning of the film, understands that he's Ken and he's there for Barbie and that's it and nothing more, right? And so his life hinges on his relationship with Barbie. So in other words, you have like a two-word phrase with a dash, okay, in a poetic sort of expression or representation of that. They are two people, but they are reliant on one another. Now, um, one thing that occurs in this that's interesting is that by the end of the film, uh, the message to Ken is that you You are something she says basically that you are something without me, okay? And this is kind of weird because I didn't really expect this. I thought this was actually kind of based. I mean, I'm not sure what Rachel and Jamie are going to say about this, but what they were saying is that Ken is Ken and Barbie's Barbie, and it's not that you can't have Ken without Barbie or Barbie without Ken, but they are two separate people. So let's take that as in let's look at that in terms of like a relationship, a real life relationship, right? Well, um in terms of let's say like a marriage, you have two people who are joined together um by God. And they are they're in it is a it's not just some sort of contract or some sort of, I don't know, common or even a common law marriage. It's that you have two separate people who have their own existence and they are brought together and then they are meant to uh establish a union based in faith and the church. Yes? So, um but I think that this is what they're saying here is I'm not sure whether to think that what they're saying in the film is that um that I'm not sure if this is a feminist message or not. I think it's actually not because obviously the best relationships you can see objectively that work out there are when um both of the partners are willing or they want to do unto others as they would have, do unto them, as they would have them do unto them, right? So, it's like they want to gain by you receive by giving. So you give in they give in their relationships, they give in their marriage, they serve. Yes, obviously one of the partners in the marriage is going to be dominant. Yes, but uh, I think that it only works for those relationships that last and that we see objectively, like, if you have parents, by the way, who, have been married for like 50 years, what do they do right? Well, one thing is that they're both independent people. They both are their own people. They have their own minds and their own thoughts. Um, they learn from each other and they love each other and they are together as one, right? In their marriage and in their life and for their kids. But they each have a soul. And it's interesting that we're talking about having a soul because we're talking about a movie about dolls who don't have a soul. But so in other words, at the end of the movie, Ken has to go off on his own journey and figure out who he is. And one of the things I didn't like about this part of the movie at the end is Jason, that's right. Is that hey, listen, I'm gonna meet you guys. Yeah. Jason, I don't know. You get that thing? You get that thing? I don't know. You remember that thing with that guy in that place? Hey, he's down there. He said, "Hey, no, go down there. Go down there. Nah, nah, nah. Go down there. Go down there. Nah, it's down there." Yeah, you know where it is. Yeah, once you get that thing, yeah, go to that other guy in that place, talk to him, and he'll call me on that number. I don't know nothing else. So he has to go off on his own journey and figure out who he is. And one of the things I didn't like about this part of the movie is that this is what I mean by the movie not really knowing what it intends, because at this point in the movie at the end, um, Ken is presented as a Mimbo, and, uh, it becomes a kind of reversal of the way that Barbie that the obviously the producers of the film think that Barbie is seen. So, doesn't work when you just push it back onto the man. That doesn't work. So Barbie has to go off to the real world, and when she does that, Ken decides that he is gonna come with her, right? So, one of the things that's cool is that it doesn't get into there's nothing, like, gratuitous in this movie. And the one thing that you would think that is on everybody's mind when they talk about Barbies in terms of gratuitous content is, um, the dolls, it's kinda gross, but the dolls, in their natural state, I suppose, even though that sounds like, pretty ironic. There is a line that Ken has that is pretty funny. He says something about a nebulous blob, referring to, his parts or whatever, but that's about it. I mean, and even that language is, if there were kids watching the movie, they wouldn't know what that means, but that was it. But so again, that was another aspect of, obviously this is a movie about, people trying to figure out and determine what this doll means and what it's supposed to represent in society. And they don't really figure it out. But here's what happens. She goes off into the real world and she's got Ken. And this is like when the movie actually gets really good. And fellas, you'll like this part because before this, they're living in Barbie world and it's all pink and it's all Barbies and everybody's Barbie, 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 all this stuff. But when they go into the real world, they find themselves it's funny because the first place that they are is Venice Beach, and they're walking on the beach, and they're like rollerblading. They've got their hypercolor rollerblades, and they're rollerblading down the beach, and all these, like, skate punks and, Warchild and Bodie are standing there, and they're like, "Far out, man." And they're looking at Ken and Barbie going down the boardwalk or whatever. But what they didn't include in this part is, they didn't include all the post-apocalyptic dystopian Mad Max, meth characters that are actually at Venice Beach now. And where's OK? Because, OK, our friend OK, should have had a cameo in this film. He should have been there, because he rules over Venice Beach, trying to keep all the zombies in line. Okay is our guy. He's our only guy in Venice Beach. Okay, we got one guy to rely on to keep that place in order. Okay, and it's okay. So anyway, they get arrested because somebody comes up to Barbie and she turns around and she accidentally hits the girl, and so they get arrested and becomes kind of funny. And then they go to a clothes store. And they're like, we gotta blend in a little bit. So they buy new clothes. And then when that happens, they get arrested again, um, and they keep getting arrested because they don't know how to handle themselves in the real world. Well, Barbie goes off to find the girl that is playing with her, right? Because she's a it's kinda weird, right? That's kinda weird. That's kinda weird when you think about it. I don't mean to put too much into that, but now that's kinda weird. I I know that it's not that, okay, but that is weird. Um I'm just gonna leave that part at that. Okay, but anyway, she goes off to find her handler. Oh, was the girl oh my gosh, I just realized that the woman who created Barbie, she named is that her name, Ruth Handler? That's her name. That is her name. The woman who created Barbie is named Ruth Handler. That's weird. Isn't that weird? So she creates Barbie, so after her daughter, who's named Barbie, who's named Barbara. And so her daughter's actual name in real life was Barbie Handler? That's weird. That's oh, man, Luke is gonna freak out over that. That's like Mandela effect or something. That's like reality flipping back over itself. That's crazy. Uh, so anyway, okay, so when she does that, she goes off to fi she so Barbie goes off to find her handler, and her handler is actually really like the girl that's her handler. She goes to Davy Crockett Middle School. That's the name of the school, and she sees, this group of, um, emo, e-girl, goth girl, middle schoolers or whatever, sitting there all in black, and they're sitting there talking about I don't know what they talk about now, but, back in the day, it would be like, they're talking about Bikini Kill or whatever, right? And Sylvia Plath. And you immediately see who is the girl that she is gonna be her handler because it's the girl who's at the center of the table, and she's like he walks in, and she's Barbie's in pink, and she says, "Hi, I'm here." And the other girls go, "Destroy her." Yeah. because this is what I'm talking about. It's like the movie is going to be it's gonna have it's gonna have all of the stuff in it, all of the dark things. It's gonna have all of the, anti-patriarchal stuff in it. But, like, at least it's funny. At least it's ironic the way that they present it because it's ridiculous, right? And the girl's like, "Barbie, I haven't played with Barbie since I was 5. You think you're the best for women? You think you're the best for women. What have women come to since you were invented, right?" So that, um, Barbie says to her that all of the advances that women have made have been because of her, or at least in her time, which is interesting because remember, she's invented like in the 50s. This is, golden age of America. And of course, they give you this doll, and the doll is supposed to be pretty. It's like, yes, the jokes are pretty surface level. And they put her in different costumes because it's surface level, because it's a doll, right? But um, but what was I gonna say? Oh, but then the girl says that no, all of the advances have been made in spite of Barbie. Yes. So listen, I'm not gonna lie here. Human beings are complex, okay, obviously. And it's kind of like the girl says in the movie that she can hold logic on the one hand and be emotional on the other hand. And um I think that this one of the ironic things is that, like, even though probably everybody in this circle looks at this movie and all the messages in it and goes, "Oh, this is cringe." It represents all of the sick, twisted ways that society's going, and everything's depraved and everything's decadent and all that stuff. I mean, it is. But at the same time, like, I watched the movie and I enjoyed the movie. And I like the band Bikini Kill, and I like La Tigra. And that kind of plays a part later on in the film because okay, so while she's doing that, Ken is off doing his thing, and Ken's journey is pretty cool. So this this part is funny. This part is for the fellas. This part is for the Sigmas. Um, Ken goes off and he finds himself in Century City. And when he's in Century City, he looks at the buildings and he goes, "Whoa, whoa!" And then he sees a dude like in a truck, and he sees a guy lifting, and he sees a couple of fellows, they're pounding it after bam, they're giving it, they're dapping each other up, and then he sees like a CEO downstairs, and a guy comes up to him and he says, "Sir, can I talk to you?" He goes, "Not right now." And then Ken tries to like imitate his body language. So Ken is all figuring out that um, the the gigas in the world, like he can be a bro, right? He can be a Chad, and that's going to change his world. We also see that Barbie, she ends up in the offices of Mattel. Now, this part's funny because this is ironic. You wonder when you watch this, give a how did they sign off on the film? Well, because it's a Barbie film, but I mean, obviously the message is like it's hypercritical of Mattel and of the toys and capitalism. I mean, the little girl even says she says to Barbie, she says, "We women have made advances in spite of you because you are a pro-capitalist pig fascist." She calls her fascist, and Barbie runs outside and she says, "She called me a fascist." Um, and that part is it's ridiculous and funny, right? But when they're in the office of the CEO, of course, this part's kind of lame because who plays the CEO? Will Ferrell. And Will Ferrell is essentially just playing Mugatu in the movie. One thing I thought was interesting, did you notice? Have you seen the movie? Did you notice that when they are in the offices, did you notice that it looks like the inside of the Twin Towers? Did you notice that? It looks like the inside of the oh, sorry, of the 2, the 2 towers in, J.R.R. Tolkien, but in New York. Let's say that. Too late, I already said it, I guess. But the inside of the building looks like that. There's only one movie, by the way, that was filmed inside of the Twin Towers, and do you remember what it was? It was a movie that we covered actually on Jay's channel. It was, Network. I think that's the only film, that was filmed there. But the one of the guys at the Mattel Corporation, gets a call from the feds, and the feds say, "Who is this?" And the guy's like, I work at Mattel." And he's like, "What are you, an intern? Give me the CEO." And the feds have learned through their COINTEL, um, intelligence operation that Barbies are coming to life and running amok in the real world. And so they have to go find these NPCs and put them back in their box and send them back. Okay. So it's a weird sort of meta reality here. And so Will Ferrell gets word of this, but the ironic thing is that Mattel is now um, selling more Barbies and then eventually more Kens than they ever have. And Ken, by the way, is going to go back into Barbie world. When Barbie gets back there, she sees that Ken has gone uh, total, total Giga, and he has destroyed Barbie World, and he's had a sort of a coup and taken it over Butler style and made it Ken World. And when they get back there, she says, "Ken, what's up with your house?" And he's leaning against the door frame, and he says, This is no longer the Barbie house. This is the Mojo Dojo Casa house." And it's pretty cool because now everything in Ken World is, centered on the fellas and what they wanna do. So, there's this whole thing about, later on in the film about the women having to serve the men, and they the way but see, the way that they talk about, um, serving the men is actually like, when they're doing that, it's actually great, in the sense that they say, "Okay, in order to kidnap the Ken dolls, here's what you have to do. Ask him like when he's sitting there watching The Godfather, go in there and tell him that you've never seen The Godfather and you want him to start the movie over and explain the whole thing, and you want to watch the movie with him talking the whole way through it." And I thought, "Oh man, that's cool." Because fellas, don't isn't that what you want to do, right? They come in and they say, one of the girls says, "I only keep my money in a savings account." And, one of the Ken dolls says, "Oh, honey, you no, you need a Roth IRA and a CD." She says, "CDs? I haven't bought CDs since the 2000s." And he says, "No, a certificate of deposit. Let me explain what that is." And then he explains it. And so in the movie, it's supposed to be a criticism because it's, "Oh, the men are all mansplaining to the women." But in reality, it's just they're showing the ways that men and women develop a relationship and that men have expertise in some things and they like to explain, right? So I don't know. I don't really know what to make of this part, but I thought it was funny and I thought it was pretty cool. The Ken World was pretty cool. And one of the things that ends up happening in the fan, "Oh, want take everything I want you to." Y'all are talking about L7 in the chat? One of my favorite songs is an L7 song. I like L7. I like Shit List and I like, My Shit List. I like L7. L7 is awesome on the Natural Born Killer soundtrack. Uh-huh, and, I like that one whole song. What are y'all talking about? You talking about Riot Girl music? I love Riot Girl music. So what I really do. Somebody said, no, I bet that was Maddie who said Shonen Knife. Of course, Maddie likes Shonen Knife. Um, one of the other things is that the movie, obviously, there's a part where he's actually I think Gosling even says, "I drive" in this movie. They there's a getaway scene, and the girls they're getting away from feds and the Mattel Corporation who are going after them, and it's also like an obvious car sponsor. They're in like a Mazda or something. It's a car sponsorship. But, oh, shouts out to Hesher out there. Shouts out to our good friend Hesher. Everybody, please say hello to Hesher, our friend Hesher out there. And listen, you know what? While I'm at it, some people get mad when I do the shouts out. I don't give a fuck because I'm going to shout out the people that I love because they deserve it. I will say this: I'm glad to be back tonight talking about a movie I'm looking at lightly because I want there to be something, that is light for us, something that's good and easy to talk about and that's just fun. Now, again, I'm not sure if it was this movie. Shouts out to Bourgeois Beatnik out there because I like the Breeders. I actually love the Breeders, Kim and Kelly Deal. Um, no, aloha. So, but I'm gonna give a shout out to some people because, this this has been a terrible week, okay? I'm just gonna say that. I can say it lightly now with a smile on face, but this has been a terrible week. It's been hard, and I think everybody out there, with any awareness knows what I mean because it's a dark time, and the demons and I mean this, um, there's a lot of um there's a lot of dark stuff that's happening that sort of bleeds over from the spiritual realm, and I fully believe that. And, um, you know, I think that, it just this was a very, very bad it was a very dark week for me. And it wasn't just for me because some of my friends are going through the exact same thing, wholly independent of me and of each other and unaware. And I think so that's bound to happen. And, you know, I'm gonna give a shout out to some people, that have really, been there for me, this week. My friends, in real life, Andrew Healy, my good friend, my good friend Healy out there. I'm just gonna say his full name. One of my best friends, and my friend Jeremiah out there have been, very, very good to me. Good friends this week in real life, and also my friends Maddie Gershom, Luke, my friend Luke, of course, Jethro, Jerry, and Mikhail out there, and Hesher. Thank you to all of those people because you guys are killer, and I love you guys so much. And also, before I forget, Hesher and I are going to do an analysis of his namesake movie, Hesher, coming up. I don't know when that will be. Hesher's a busy guy, obviously, with TNT Radio, ACR, all this stuff. And so we're going to do that when we can fit it in with his schedule. But I actually watched the movie Hesher for the first time this week. And I have this thing about movies where I can, it's not like an 11 level psychic superpower about movies, but when you watch enough movies and you read enough, you can already predict. And it's one of the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy, right? That you're able to predict um, the possible outcomes of literary works and film works before it happened. And so I sort of avoided this movie Hesher because I knew that there was something about the movie that was gonna really hit me, and I gotta say, I was very affected by the movie. It's got Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Hesher, who's a metalhead in the movie, and, it's about this little boy who's struggling, and having a hard time in life, and man, I gotta tell you, that movie hit me hard. I mean, it that movie rocked me, dude. I mean, it really, really fucking rocked me. It was a very difficult movie for me to watch, and, I'm glad I watched it because it was really powerful, so I can't wait to go over that with Asher. Also, we're gonna be doing Jarhead coming up, with my friend Grunt, and, so Jarhead's great. If you guys haven't seen that, Sam Mendes, Jarhead is directed by an Englishman, Sam Mendes. It's from, 2005, and, it's a sort of it happens during the war on terror, but it's about Desert Storm. So, remember Jamie Foxx is in that movie also, and Jamie Foxx has recently come back, and he's in some new Netflix movie which I tried to watch last night. I couldn't watch it, but there's that scene which is powerful. I love this scene in the movie because my friend Jeremiah in real life was a combat he's a combat veteran, ranger, from Iraq who went to Iraq a few times. He was involved in the, storming of Tikrit, slept in Saddam's palace. My friend I have a friend who's a real badass in real life. He's a great guy. And the movie there's a scene in the movie, even though it's about Marines, he's Army, where Jamie Foxx says, "You know why I do this?" And remember, the oil fields are burning, and he says, "Because I love this shit." And that's a great scene in the movie. Yes, I mean, it is like the movie is critical of the military, but also obviously functions as a kind of pro-military propaganda. But nevertheless, it was a powerful scene. So, so that's what we got coming up. But where was I in terms of this analysis? So Mattel Corporation has to go after Barbie because she is getting loose in the real world, and this is threatening their. This is somehow threatening the system, right? And another thing that was cool about this week, about this movie, was that Mattel Corporation. If you didn't know this, I learned this from my favorite show in the world, Pawn Stars. um, is that there is a kind of a urban legend, conspiracy theory that Mattel Corporation started off as a gun manufacturer, but it's actually not true. It's just a different Mattel. But it's interesting to buy if you bought a gun and it has Mattel Corporation on it, and you thought, "Oh my god, it's a toy company," but that's not so far out of the bounds of reality, right? As Jim Morrison says, because there are plenty of other corporations that began as some sort of military with some sort of military ties. And you remember that in the 50s, while they were making Barbie, they were also producing the home science kits that had actual depleted uranium in them. Do you remember that? They actually made those. There was a that's where the sort of Oppenheimer Barbie um, line kind of gets crossed when you're thinking about the analysis of this film. But so Mattel Corporation has Men in Black going after the Bolivian Barbie, and we figure out that it's actually not the tween girl that has been playing with Barbies. It is actually the woman. It's her mother, who's played by America Ferrera. Now, America Ferrera, she wasn't in Welcome to the Dollhouse, but she was in something else having to do with dolls, wasn't she? Anyway, we figure out that Ferrera's character works for Barbie, and that Barbie is experiencing an existential crisis because she's designing new Barbies on paper, and one of them is Existential Crisis Barbie, because it's a reflection of what she is going through as an adult. Now, this is interesting um, because I don't know. Okay, let me try and make sense of this. On the one hand, this is fairly wholesome in a way because there's a mother. She cares about her daughter. She's struggling with her life, and with the way that the world is, and she's trying to make sense of it in the context of her job. But on the other hand, it's a dangerous thing because it shows that in terms of the life of the movie that she is regressing. So when things get different, and I don't think that they intended this for the movie, but when the woman's life gets difficult, she infantilizes and regresses into her childlike state where she's playing with dolls. Does that make sense? That's the figurative interpretation that I have. Now, she's not literally playing with dolls because she works for the for the Mattel Corporation, and she's drawing them, so she's creating them. And this is what I was talking about on TNT Radio on Friday night. You guys, no, it was last night. Please go and check out my most recent spot on TNT Radio. This is big time for me, you guys. I had the whole first hour of the Joseph Arthur show, Joseph and Technicolor Dreamcast. show last night, Saturday night, at 9 o'clock. It's on TNT Global Radio, TNT Radio Live. Please check that out because we got pretty deep on some stuff. And one of the things that we were talking about was, by the way, this jacket, this is my favorite jacket now. And shouts out to my sister because I wish I'd been able to see this movie with my sister for, because for obvious reasons. But she's down there down south, and she went with her lady friends to see Barbie, and they all dressed up. That's fun. But this jacket is it looks like a thrift store jacket or something like that. But I'm wearing this jacket because it's actually in honor of my sister. So I don't know what that motherfucker was saying earlier, but this is a real jacket, and it says on it, it says North American Karate Sport Karate Association 1999 World National and World Champion. Because I'm just going to say this: my sister is a former multi-world champion in karate, third degree black belt, and so she got this jacket back then when it obviously couldn't fit her and put it in a closet. So I said, "Nope, this jacket's for me." I took it. So it's a real thing, and I do that to honor my sister, who is a actual badass in real life. So anyway, um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't think that they intended for that to be the message, right? In terms of the strength of women, right, in the message of the movie. I don't think that they intended that, but that is an obvious figurative thing that happens. Now, the other thing that happens, which is there are two other things that happen, which I don't think that they thought about very deeply, in terms of what the outcome of this is. One is that there's a war of the Kens at the end of the movie, where all the Kens are fighting with each other, and you got to remember also that the Ken is presented the way that he is in the movie because you forget that when most people see this, and probably the filmmakers forgot this actually, they are going to assume that the Ken is for boys, but it's not. What fellas? What dude ever bought a Ken? It's for girls to have the Ken so that when they're playing with Barbie, the Barbie can have a boyfriend or husband that's Ken. They can have a boy in the Barbie world. It's not for dudes who are playing with Ken. The dudes are playing with GI Joes, right? So I actually thought it would have been very clever in the movie if during the War of the Kens, if sort of crusade style, huh, all of the crusaders are fighting, and then out of then Deus Ex Machina, God sends his scourge in the form of Genghis Khan and wipes out everyone, right? So I thought it would be interesting if during the War of the Kens, the GI Joes showed up and just annihilated everyone. That would be pretty funny. Um, but alas, it doesn't happen. John Cena does appear in the movie. Also, um, have you ever seen the skit with Steve Coogan? We ride at dawn. Yes, we ride at dawn. We ride at dawn. 9 o'clock. We ride at 9 o'clock. It will be too early, right? The trip. Have you ever seen the trip? It will be too early, so we ride at 9:15 ish. 9:15 ish. Yeah, well, we've got to get time for breakfast. So what time's breakfast over? It's over at 10. At 9, quarter to 10. Quarter of, we ride. We ride at dawn. We ride at 9:45. That dude, not Steve Coogan, but the other guy, the other actor, the Welsh actor, is in the film playing Barbie, and he's actually playing Sugar. His name is Sugar Daddy Barbie, and I guess this is a real Barbie. But when they confront him about it, they say, and he's standing above them, and he says, "No, Sugar is the dog. The dog is Sugar, and my name's Daddy. I'm the Daddy Barbie. That's all it is." Which I thought was kind of funny. But there is a scene in the film where they do that whole "we ride it on." So they obviously they like the trip. But anyway, there's a War of the Kens. Okay, and um, the way it's sort of presented is that you see The Kens have taken over Barbie world, and now it's Ken world, and they've rewritten the Constitution. There's a new Ken who's the president. There's a Ken who's the Supreme Court justice. There's a new Supreme Court. And what's interesting is when that happens, everything's kind of functioning. I'm sorry, but it is. It's functioning like it's supposed to, right? But um, the way it's presented is that, oh, now, of course, the Kens are going to do what men always do, which is fight. They're going to have a war. Well, while this is happening, the women have a coup and they take back over the government. But are they aware that the Kens are, first of all, partly fighting over the Barbies, right? Because they want Barbie. They don't really say whether it's love or whether it's relationships or even even what it is, but it kind of makes it out to be, what it is in nature, which is that the men are fighting over their mate. Dudes rock. Dudes do rock. Shouts out 199 to our friend Digital Minefield. Dudes rock. And there are scenes in this movie where I was glad to see that, where dudes rock, right? Like there's a scene where they're on the they're walking on the beach and they see the dudes like playing sports and stuff, and they're just like, dudes rock, right? Um, and I was also surprised that there is some obvious I mean, the movie itself is a Skittles looking movie. There wasn't there wasn't any I didn't see any Skittles in the movie. And I thought that was yeah, ladies rock too, for sure. Yeah, ladies rock. Shouts out to the ladies out there. Shouts out to the ladies. We love the ladies. I love the ladies. Oh, by the way, I gotta say this, man. Of all the Barbies, I mean, Margot Robbie is great for the movie because, again, there's a scene where they break the fourth wall, and Barbie says in her monologue, she says, "I'm not pretty anymore. I'm not beautiful anymore," and this leads to America Ferrera's soliloquy, which and they say the word deprograms. It deprograms the Barbies out of the patriarchy, which is weird because the their whole world is a matriarchy. It's run by them. But they do say at one point, they kind of make a snide little joke, "Oh, women have as much power here as they don't in the real world." So, are they aware? Are the makers of the film aware that um, the major wars, not all of them, but many of the major cataclysmic wars have happened under women? That some of the women have been huge warmongers in terms of at least being the overlords of the war, right? I mean, look at the Victorian era, right? Or look at the and I'm not saying it's bad, but look at the English conquest of the world, starting with Elizabeth II. I mean, Elizabeth II and Victoria are the two most powerful English monarchs, and they're women. Um, look at we came, we saw, he died. Remember the absolute destruction of Libya? So are they aware of that? I don't know, but and I'm not trying to be flippant or snide here. I'm just saying. Um, but Barbie says, I'm not beautiful anymore." And Margot Robbie, breaks in through the narrative and says, a note to the filmmakers, Margot Robbie is the wrong casting for this line in the movie. And I thought that was pretty funny, right? Um, uh, but she's great for the movie because she is she's obviously pretty. I mean, she's a beautiful woman. She is. She's physically a beautiful woman. And but um but what I thought was interesting was that she is in pain throughout the movie. I mean, and she was good casting for that because you can see it behind her eyes. And she is her character, regardless of the reasons and the fact that she wants to be a real girl and all stuff. Um, she is in pain in the movie, and I thought that that was as good as having Ryan Gosling play Ken because he is purposefully surface level, and the transformation that takes place when he realizes what he can be is very funny. Because he in a lot of ways, he, he becomes Conor McGregor or, like, Andrew Tate, or something in the movie. I mean, the way that he dresses, the way that he talks is very much, you'll see what I mean when you watch the movie, but it's funny. But there is a part where he does, he does have a one paragraph about 3/4 of the way through the film, which would be consistent with the narrative arc, in literature, where he all of a sudden breaks out of his role and he shouts. He shouts at Barbie and he tells her that basically that he wants to be someone. He wants to be listened to and he wants to be a man. He wants to be someone, right? And I thought that this was so interesting in terms of what the movie is trying to establish because if the movie is about how um, women are represented by Barbie, who is the a prototypical beautiful woman, and that their criticism is that no woman can ever reach to that standard. By the way, the tween girl, the emo girl, actually has a great line. She says, "Nobody likes women. Women don't like women. Men don't like women. Nobody likes anybody. Let's just leave it at that." And I thought that was pretty interesting for this emo girl to say because she hates Barbie. But it was kind of revelatory in the film. Um, and if that's the case, though, then they end up doing the exact same thing to the men in the movie. So we've talked so much about how, you know, um, there are kind of 2 types of people in terms of success, right? Um, let's say, you start from the bottom, start from the bottom, now you're here, right? If you started off at the bottom and you have friends that support you, and you're all sort of doing your own thing, but you're in it together, and then all of a sudden you get a major success. There are 2 types of people. There's one type of person who will, uplift his friends with him. He'll bring them along on that wave. Through his success, he wants to make it better for everyone around him. He wants to make the world better. He wants to give in order to receive. There's that type of person. Then there's the other type of person who wants to step on the faces of the people who helped him because that will help him to get head and shoulders above everybody else, right? And that's what we're talking about with the snitches and the haters, right? And, the 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 sneak thieves and the all the types of people that really were revealed, by the way, during, Karanka, right? When, Sam Hyde made a good point. He said, this whole era has turned out to be a time when the silent secret snitch, can thrive because now they can, they're the virtuous ones, yeah. So, um, Ken you know, Ken wants to bring along the fellows with him. He wants to lift it up and make everything better for them. And, he says to Barbie, he even says to Barbie, you feel something like, you feel like you weren't listened to or you weren't appreciated. Is that how you feel? She's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, it stings, doesn't it? It hurts pretty bad. So, in other words, he's right. Now, notice that he's not trying to push them down. He's not trying to destroy their world. He's simply trying to I don't know, make an NWO, but not in a bad way, I guess. Um, but of course the Barbies take back control of Barbie world, and in the end, it's fine. It's a happy ending for everybody. But one of the things that this is another Pinocchio story, right? Have you guys ever heard the recording of Kanye doing the Boy song live? Have you guys ever heard that? I think it's, at the end of 808s and Heartbreak. Most people don't listen to it because it 808s and Heartbreak is, like, a brilliant album. I mean, I know that's kind of a hot take, like, everybody knows that, but it is a fantastic album. It is so important, it's so good because it really took first of all, it changed rap. It just did. Because before that, remember, um, we had 90s gangster rap, and then we had Southern rap, based around Atlanta. And then it was kind of in the 2000s, early 2000s, rap was kind of lost. The Neptunes and the RD kind of dominated rap for a long time, and I love that era because I'm from VA. But then it was kind of at a loss. And what was the natural progression was that electronic music would finally break through into the mainstream. There were some periods where they tried to push electronic music into the mainstream, like in the '90s, for instance, with the trance explosion of trance. But it still didn't really happen. And then the final sort of push and explosion for that came when Dead Mouse they finally put Dead Mouse on the cover of Rolling Stone, and that really was the moment. Not that I care about Rolling Stone, but I used to read Rolling Stone, and not that I like Dead Mouse really. I do like the song, Remember, uh, but that was the moment. But it was when Kanye it was really when I mentioned this before, but it was when will.i.am, of all people, went to Australia, went on his Australian tour. This is from a Spin magazine article. He went on his Australian tour, and, when he was going out, he said, "Well, let's go to the clubs. Where are the clubs?" And they said, "What kind of club you wanna go to?" And he said, "Hip hop." And they said, "Hip hop? No, mate. No, no, electro." And they took him to an electronic music club, and he heard, electro, like, for the first time. I guess he was listening to probably Bag Raiders and Presets and modular recordings stuff, Van Shee down in, um, down in Australia, and, maybe he heard that and that transformed him, but, that and Kanye's "808s and Heartbreak," like, really, really changed stuff. Somebody yeah, G Money says "Liquid Swords" is one of my favorite albums of all time. That's '90s GZA. I saw GZA in concert, it was great. I saw him in Bristol, in England, but, uh But Moldy says, "Wish I was, rich enough to buy Rolling Stone to destroy it." I mean, you don't really need to because it's already destroyed. They destroyed it from the inside, right? It's already kinda gone. Um, but and also Rolling Stone, I think, is owned by a some sort of consortium. It's, like, owned by BlackRock or something now. So, it's pretty much it's gone. But Rolling Stone sort of destroyed itself finally, the nail in the coffin was, when they did that fake story about the fraternities, remember? And then they had to retract it. That to me was I think that was the moment. You guys, please like and share the stream. We got just a couple more things. Please like and share the stream. Please support my work. You can support my work with, the, the links in the video description or in the channel description. Um And I could, please support my work. What I'm really trying to do here, by the way, is let me go to my links real quick. What I'm really trying to do, my mission, and this is one of the reasons I had a tough week, because, I might have said this last time, and I certainly said it on TNT. One of the things is that, um, it's great going over literary content and analysis of other works because, that's what I do, that's what I've always done, and, I love doing that, and we learn especially if you're an artist or you're a writer, you learn by constant reading, first of all, by reading and paying attention to the world around you and listening, and the written word is, supremely important. But, you know, at some point, we've gotta make stuff. You've gotta create not you, but we. It's not advice. I know everybody in here is a grown person, and like I've said before, I'm a grown man. I don't want advice, and I don't, unless I ask for it, and that would be from a person that I, respect and love, because you don't want advice. You don't want it. Nobody. You don't need advice from me. I'm just some dude. Okay, but I will say, in terms of us all, one thing that we've got to do is make stuff. We've got to make stuff. Look at the world around us, man. The world is in a very bad place right now. I hate to black pill you or I'm not some doomer, obviously, because I have a Christian paradigm and I believe in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and I believe that God, um, God, God created every person who has ever lived, ever, every person who has ever lived and who's ever been born was created by God. Every person who ever will be born will be created by God. Creates right now. Everything right now, everything we have is because of God. And God, you know, like it said in that X-Men cartoon, that based X-Men cartoon meme I saw the other day. Um, of all things, right? I saw it on Instagram. I don't watch, X-Men or anything. But Wolverine says something like, "How could a God who loves me afflict me with this, with these weapons?" And the dude says to him, you know, although we're incapable of knowing the reasons that God does things, um, we are capable of understanding that God has infinite love. And God is infinite in his goodness and love and mercy. He has to be, because you can't create things out of a destructive spirit. You can only create things in terms of something that is, unless it's an inversion, right? Unless it's an Oppenheimer nuke bomb. But even so, it's like um the things that are created for us and in us are out of love, right? And we just have to do this thing where there's only so much talking and doing critical analysis, which is fine. It's all great. And doing the things that we do, that there's only so much of that. At some point, we have to make stuff. We just do. We have to the things that we don't like, we have to I'm not saying be the change you wanna see in the world, right? "Si se puede," as they say in the movie. Not I'm not saying that. I'm saying, for me, it's like I have this thing on my mind, and it is getting to it's sitting down and writing my novel and finishing it and putting it out and publishing it for you, not just for you, for the glory of God. Um, but I want you to be able to read it, and I want you to be able to read it and hate it if you hate it, or love it, or find something from it, but I want you to see it. I want to be able God gave me a talent, okay? And I know that. Everybody has talents, and, I wanna be able to do that, and it's like it's a big, big weight. We all have this big weight, but we gotta do something about it, and, yeah, Toledo says we gotta think it, dream it, do it, right? Which, by the way, like, aren't the first 2 things just the same? Um, you know, so please support me because my mission is to be able to devote more time to creating something that I think that will be beneficial and that you guys would enjoy. I'm writing a book on Monarch, and it's not a historical book. You want me to tell you what it is? You might not care, but it's called Monarch, and it is about a. I've told you this before a little bit, but it's about a boy in the first person. It goes from first person to third person because there's dissociation in it. And it's dark. But it's about a boy who wakes up um, in the middle of the Everglades, essentially, and doesn't know where he is or why he's there, and it's at night, but quickly realizes um, that there are other people there, there are other kids there, and one of them gets obliterated in front of him, and that snaps him into the fact that he's part of the most dangerous game. This is the very start of the book, and that he has to survive, and then he comes to essentially and realizes that this is a test, but it's a war game gone real. And I got this from some of the reading that I've read about some of the testimony that I read about the Winter Soldiers, the Super Soldiers, Monarch, and MK Ultra, and about the most dangerous game things that supposedly happened. I don't know if they did happen or not, but the testimony seemed to be truthful enough to me, and it was truthful enough to me to be painful in my soul, and that to realize that this was something that I could do in terms of that I could write about this. And so he um he ends up eliminating his eliminators and winning and surviving, and eventually he has to break out of the place where he's been held, and um, he becomes essentially a Doug Valentine's Phoenix program, and it's very dark. He starts eliminating people, and the news is going to say, of course, that he is a serial killer, right? In a way, he is because he is eliminating people in a series, but they are all specific targets related to his captivity from before. So that probably sounds like the same old story. Most dangerous game is in so many things, but this is a literal most dangerous game, and the way I mean, it took me a long time to write one chapter of this book, and that's saying something because I think this is going to be the thing that that this is the thing that I want to do before my life is over. I'll just say that this is the thing that I think is going to be. Um, this is taking all of my sort of psychic energy and my time and a lot of my mental time is is leading to this thing in the back of my mind, and it's dread. It's dreadful. Um, I think I'm not. You know, I also want to publish my book, some of my books of poems. And actually, I wouldn't expect anyone to care at all about poetry. I mean, except for a few people. No one buys books of poems. But I do think that if you guys could read the book that I wrote, I think that you would actually like it because of the subject matter. Because it's about megalomania and terror. That's the subject, and it's mainly in the first person, and it's about, Imperial Rome, uh, mid 20th century Europe, and the troubles in Northern Ireland. And the language is pretty intense. The book of poems is called Runes, and, the novel will be called Monarch. And so anyway, I need your support because I need to work towards getting to a place where I can just work and still do this and stuff, but devote more time and energy to that. And I can eat. So so I would really appreciate your support. And I've had some big supporters about the last month who heard me say that before and were very, very kind and reached out to me for that. But anyway, so thank you so much. Yeah, you guys can donate during the using those links that Jethro just dropped. Really appreciate that. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal really get to me really quickly, or through super chats. Also, before I forget, um, I got a bunch of stuff on the way here, and one of the things is where's my copy of? Oh, one of the things is something that somebody has been one of my supporters out there, one of you guys has been asking for. You asked for this like a long time ago, and I finally was able to get the book. And I just got it. It finally came in, and this is the Decameron by Boccaccio. So I'm going to dive into this one. This is going to be a big analysis. Here, look at the book. Boccaccio was a friend of Dante's, and it is about the plague. And of course, this is coming 3 years on the heels of Karanka and all that stuff. But it is about the plague. We've sort of seen this with Mask of the Red Death. So this is a Renaissance or pre-Renaissance book about the plague, which is entirely relevant now. Also, um, one of my next streams is going to be something much, much lighter, which is Shakespeare on Love. And that's Much Ado About Nothing. I was in this play. I played Benedict in this play. It's going to be Sonnet 18, Much Ado About Nothing, and probably Taming of the Shrew. Taming of the Shrew is great. And actually, who would love there are two Shakespeare plays that we need to get covered by the big people that we associate with, right? One is, and you guys can reach out and tell them this, if you want them to cover these works or if you want me to do it with them. One is, The Taming of the Shrew, which would be perfect for Jamie and Rachel, to look at because, I mean, it really is, like, you look at the resolution, and the climax of that play, and Petruchio and Kate's soliloquies and that, and I think it would be surprising for, those 2 ladies to, look at those plays and see what Shakespeare was saying makes a perfect relationship in a marriage. I mean, you guys would think it's pretty based. Um, the other is, of course, my favorite play of all time, Macbeth, and, you know, uh, who obviously needs to cover Macbeth, because Macbeth is about the occult and witchcraft, and of course, there's a Roman Polanski film of it, and that would be our friend Jay. So please, reach out to JD and tell him, say, hey man, um, tell him to take a look at Macbeth because, and Jay knows Macbeth. I mean, he has a degree in literature, so he knows Shakespeare very well. So I think that would be a good one. I think that would be good for him to cover, and I could do it with him, right? Um, will um, will I wash this blood clean from my hands? No, it will the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red. Right. Um, and in Much Ado About Nothing, he says, "The gentle wheels of Phoebus roundabout dapple the drowsy east with spots of gray." I love Shakespeare, so we need to keep hard copy books and to keep I hope you guys keep supporting me because I really do think that it is so important to keep looking at literature because outside of us, very few people read, right? Very few people read. Reading is just it's gone. And I'm aware of how reading has gone, over the years. I mean, I think that a lot of time it's I think it's overestimated how much people read, in the past, even in our lifetime. People assume that people read way more in the past, and they did and they didn't. But now we're in the now, and, it's important for us to read books and to have books. I haven't covered Coriolanus, but I've seen the film a couple times. I know the play, pretty well, and Coriolanus is interesting because especially that film, because it's set in the Balkans, and it's about kind of a balkanized world. So the film is actually not great, but I would cover it. But it's got Ray Fiennes and Gerard Butler. Things are about to get sporty. So I can cover that. But there's a lot. There's a lot. Another film that we need to cover probably. Big shouts out to our girl out there, Claire, beautiful Claire out there. So Claire, Canadian Claire from Canada, shouts out to you, Claire. Claire, turned me on to this movie called Athena, and it is a French film that came out a couple years. I think it's new and came out. It came out in the last couple years, but it is about. It's interesting because France is in a kind of continuous state of riot. Political protests and riots always occur in France. It's a kind of a French tradition, right? But it is amazing how prescient it is for what's happening in France now. And so we need to probably maybe we can do an analysis of that. I did not cover the new Macbeth with well, I talked about it in depth actually. I didn't do a whole stream about it, but I did talk about it in depth. And that one is a Coen Brothers film. Oh, by the way, Athena is on Netflix. So look it up. You should watch it. It's French. It is a great movie. It's, very, very hardcore. It's like that scene in, Children of Men that's like a 30-minute long uncut scene in the riot, which, basically occurred in real life, 12 years, 14 years after that? Well, the whole movie is like that, and it kinda reminds me of The Raid 2 or some of the work that's being done by Asian filmmakers or Hardcore Henry. If you guys haven't seen Hardcore Henry, I mean, Jay covered, by the way, yesterday, Rubliev film, and I think it's important for people to keep in mind that, you know, uh, oftentimes we people talk about foreign films and they say, "Oh, foreign films. I love foreign films." Well, foreign films can be as bad as American films or as good, but one thing that's interesting is that oftentimes foreign films will are important because there is a kind of there's a new vision, not only of filmmaking, but about of the world that occurs from an outsider's perspective or one who is outside of the Hollywood system. So, for example, when you're making a film, it's easy to get into the mode of there's a tracking shot and the camera pans and it's just kind of there. Um, but there's something to be said for a filmmaker who uses the camera as another character in the film because you often forget that. When, for instance, in the Raid 2, which is an excellent film, um, it's constantly it's kinetic, and you forget that it has to be this way because there's literally a cameraman doing all of this stuff, filming all of this stuff like a character in the film because he is contemporaneous with the characters, right? He's moving with them. And so I think that it's important, like in especially in Russian and French cinema, sometimes in Asian cinema, to look at some of the great things that have come out and see what we can learn from those things in terms of an appreciation of the world and a paradigm, right? Um, okay, so just final thoughts on Barbie, I guess. The soundtrack again is great, because its score is done by Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt. Andrew Wyatt was in Miyake Snow. He's one of those guys. So I think he's Swedish. Great, great musician, and I liked the sort of minimalism of the synths in the movie. It was pretty good. What else was good? The this this movie's gonna win an Oscar for best costumes. It just is. It was sort of made for that, and in fact, there is a touching scene where Barbie meets, an old woman on a bench, and I thought this one scene I thought was very well done because there was hardly any need for dialogue, and you could see in the old woman's eyes, she turns and looks at Barbie, and she knows exactly who she's talking to and exactly what she's looking at, and what I saw, the way I interpreted this was she appreciated what Barbie did for, for girls in terms of, like, "Look, man, aside from all the bullshit in the movie and all the political stuff, like, you want little kids to enjoy life and have fun, right? Let them play with their dolls. Let them play with their doll babies. Let these little girls play with their doll babies, I guess, you know? I mean, just let them be innocent and, and the old woman looks at Barbie and, um, she just it was very sweet, but that's because I like old people. I think that, like Norm Macdonald said, there's old people are more interesting. They have so much to say. They have so many good stories, and I like that scene. But anyway, the old lady on the bench was some costume designer, so anyway, this will win for best costume. But uh, the woman who plays Ruth Handler was funny because that's what's her name? What's Danny DeVito's ex-wife's name? I think this is cool because Danny DeVito is pretty cool because where else could this dude make I mean, he's so interesting and so funny, and I like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I like that, he divorced his wife or whatever, but they seem to still have a good relationship, I guess. But anyway, Yeah, Rhea Perlman. Yeah, Rhea Perlman is yeah, she's thank you, Maddie and Jethro. Rhea Perlman plays Ruth Handler, and it's interesting because at one point, Will Ferrell says, "That's," he says, "That's the ghost of the creator of Barbie. She keeps an office on the 17th floor." And Barbie actually escapes into an old world kitchen to get away from the handlers and or from the feds and from the Mattel, Men in Black. And what's funny is that what does she say? She says, "I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and I get my best thoughts done sitting in the kitchen table." And look, in any other lifetime, that would be a totally normal statement, but we know that it's politically charged now because, of course, there's a woman in the kitchen. And the criticism in the movie is that, "Oh, this is the way they wanna portray women." But a woman made this movie, and she put the woman there, and the woman created Barbie, and it's just she's sitting at the kitchen table, and she says, "Come on in. You can have a respite here," right? Well, then later on, it turns out that that's Rhea Perlman who plays the creator, and she even says to the Barbies, they say, "You're the creator?" She says, "Of course I'm the creator." She says, "Of course I'm the creator. What do you think? The person who created Barbie is gonna look like Barbie? I'm a 5 foot nothing lady with mental issues, money problems, and a double mastectomy. I created Barbie because that's everything I want it to be." I thought that was pretty clever. Um, and I, shouts out to ADH out there, our friend ADH. She said she couldn't wait for me to do this analysis. She sent me a message last night, and that she had watched Ben, what's his name? Ben, what's his name? Analysis of this. And honestly, and thank you to ADH for giving me the idea to do this. Honestly, I can already I was listening to Mersh earlier and he was talking about what Ben Shapiro said about this film. And I kind of have Mersh's viewpoint of this, which is that look, you know, we know exactly what Ben Shapiro is gonna say about the film, and, this movie is so disgusting. I saw this movie, it's so disgusting. It's an ugly vision of the world, and all they wanna do is they wanna make Barbie, and they wanna make her CW, right? Well, the problem is that, when you splurg out about the movie like that, it tends to even turn off the people who, who you want to appeal to, and that, you know, my problem with someone like that is that, he this movie is so obvious for criticism in terms of that. So, maybe it folds back on itself and there's something based inside of it, which is I hope I've brought to light some of the things in that. And if not that, then it's the fact that the movie doesn't seem to know exactly what, it wants in the end. Yes, it does have the, Gnosticism of the, um breaking out of the prison planet, right? They literally do that. She finds herself in a kind of prison planet world, breaking out of the box, right? She's got to think outside the box. They try and confine her by tying her back into her Mattel box, which is a kind of coffin, right? But in the grave, she will be perfect. Um, and of course, it has the overlords and the 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 archons of the CFO and the COO and the CEO and the board of governors, up in their Century City ivory tower. Um, it's got the Gnostic creator in who's a woman, in this, and there's a Sophia character, which is the weird Barbie, who's a kind of a what's her name? A Sybil. She's a Sybil. She's a bit of a Sybil, the Kate McKinnon character. Um, But, of course, it's gonna have that because remember, we're talking about dolls, right? So you have to look at it as that the dolls are just dolls, and what the viewpoint is that the Barbies are seeing themselves through the eyes of the children who have now grown up into the world and find that it's a fallen world and either want something perfect again that's not perfect because it was created by man. They're doll babies, or they are critical of what their own childhood experiences have gone on to create, um, and to like sort of what they've made in the world. And one of the interesting things is that the little tween emo girl, who I like, by the way, because I realized that this is the daughter of America Ferrera in the movie, who has the kind of stinging criticism. She calls Barbie a fascist. See, I thought that was funny. Um, and I like that girl because she was the girl in that movie 65 with Adam Driver that I talked about. Remember I talked about that movie? I liked her in that. This girl's gonna be big. She's gonna be very famous. But I like her, man. I thought she was cool, and so anyway, I think that, you know, it's just important to try to find the things that are ridiculous. And if not in terms of what they don't mean to be ridiculous. They don't mean um for some of their messages to be ridiculous, but they are. And the Ken world that happens is supposed to look ridiculous in the film, but guess what? It's actually pretty cool. It's actually pretty cool in a lot of ways, because it's just the bros hanging out, being bros, and they got stuff. They got cool stuff, and Ken obviously he wants a woman. He wants Barbie. He wants to fall in love with her because she's Barbie, and he's the Chad of the group. So why shouldn't he? Well, in the end, she says, "I'm not in love with Ken." And but that's weird because they don't have a concept of love in their world because they're in Barbie world. So it's clever because like she has to learn when she goes into the real world like how to eat food and drink drinks. Because again, you picture this from the viewpoint of like your little sister with the tea party. You guys have a little sister and like she wanted you to be in a tea party. Or maybe you have a daughter and she does that. Come on, fellas. I know that you do that because I know there are fellas out there, you know, watching right now who are probably, totally based, big Chad mechanic dudes, construction workers who go home and their little daughter has a tea party. Of course, they're going to be in the tea party with her because they love them, that's their little girl. There's a great scene in the movie where Barbie is walking by with Ken and they're walking past these construction workers in the real world. This was pretty cool. And Barbie says that she doesn't forgive me. I hate saying words like this. They're so crass. Forgive me. I'm not like a prudish guy, but I just hate saying crass things sometimes. She says, I don't have genitalia because I'm a Barbie. And then Ken says, yeah, I've got a nebulous blob. And the construction workers are sitting there like this, and they go, one dude goes, "It's all right, man. Whatever." And I thought, that right there, that dude right there, right? That's our dudes right there. Who gives a shit? I don't care, man. I'm on my lunch break, right? You're just some dude walking past. Okay, fine. I mean, yes, obviously that's but um, but I thought that was yeah, but yeah, there's been a lot of talk about before the movie started, and I didn't believe this. But they were like, people were saying, yes, this movie's an abomination, and of course, Barbie gets an abortion in the movie, right? So this is what we're dealing with, people, right? Well, um, I didn't think that would be true in the movie, and it's not. She doesn't get an abortion or any of that. I think they might be confused because actually, this is interesting. Here's my take on the end of the movie, and Rachel and Jamie might have a totally different take on this because obviously it's kind of nasty because the final thing she does in the movie. So when Barbie becomes a real girl and she's given the choice to stay a Barbie by the Gnostic demiurge in the movie or whatever to uh, to be a Barbie and to live in this false paradise or to break out and be a real human being, she tells her, you know, that, there's something that human beings, being a human being is great. There's something that human beings have to deal with, and there's no way around it, and it's called death. And you're gonna, you're gonna die. Um, if you're a human being, you could live a beautiful life, but all human beings die, and the dolls don't. They just degrade. Well, it's interesting that the sort of poetic metaphysical concept at the heart of this movie is that the dolls remain perfect in their perfect state if they are untouched and unplayed with, right? And this speaks to the fascination of the autists in the world and the Spurg people about, you know, remember this kind of really came into the popular mind with the movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin. You remember that movie where they're in they're in Steve Carell's house and he says, "You've got is this the guy from the $6 million man? This isn't even the $6 million man. But it's not even out of the box." Says, "Yes, it's more valuable that way." Remember he spurgs out in the movie because he gets a girl and she kind of convinces him to sell his dolls, right? "When I was a child, I did childish things. When I became a man, I put away childish things." And she's trying to teach him to be a man and to sell his valuable dolls and his toys so that he can, he can be a man and he can use his income to make his life better. Like, be a man. Stop playing with your Funko Pops, right? Well, and he freaks out about it. Remember in the movie, that's like at the heart of that movie. Well, in this one, this is kind of like that taken to the extreme. That's the world we live in now. That's society, right? So, um, that's really interesting because the movie it's Barbies, but it could be Funko Pops. It's Funko Pops the movie, and so on the one hand, the movie is about w- you know the mind of the people who have grown. They've grown up. They played with their Funko Pops when they were little, and now they've grown up, and this is their view of Barbies in the world, good or bad, right? Political or non, whatever, all that stuff. But on the other hand, it's about how Barbie, if unplayed with, remains, old new. It remains like sort of perfect in its state in the box. And so that's saying that, human beings aren't like that because we we grow up and our bodies degrade. One of the things is that Barbie realizes that she has cellulite. And that's because the mother has been designing a cellulite Barbie, which is kind of, it's an ironic sort of artwork, but she means for it to be made. And then guess what? They start selling. And of course, nobody's going to buy those. But uh, I don't know. Maybe they say they buy them, but the point is that um, she wants to experience what it's like to be a human being. So um, at some point, you got to put away your Funko Pops if you ever had them and be a man and realize that one thing is that again their message isn't really what they intended it to be. America Ferrera said she deprograms the Barbies by saying, "Yes, you have cellulite, but you are beautiful. You're a beautiful person," and that's her message in the movie, which is to say that uh, you're perfect just the way you are. Well, that's not true. I don't agree with that. We're not perfect, right? But human beings are they are beautiful regardless they can be beautiful regardless of what they look like in many ways. I mean, everybody knows that, right? Um, look at us. We all have our physical imperfections. I mean, we strive to be, you know, to be more pleasing in terms of our appearance and to not be, repugnant or detestable. But it's the things about what we say and do and our minds and our spiritual life, our religious life that makes us beautiful, right? So, I think that it's I'm not sure what to make of this, but at the end of the movie, the last line in the movie is that after Barbie becomes a human being, she where does she go? She goes into the real world and can you guess where she goes, y'all? Where does she go? Uh she goes to she says she goes to somewhere they ask her name. She says, "My name is, Barbara Handler." So she's Barbie becomes the child, right? Barbie becomes the real girl, the Gnostic child, the star child, and she becomes a person, and she says, "And I'm here for my gynecologist appointment." Now, this, uh, would probably I can imagine this getting a laugh in the theater from the it's not funny, but it would be like, "Oh, she's just like us." This is their version of the Giga Chad moments, right? Of Gosling, being the real life driver, right? But what I saw this as was kind of clever in the sense that it shows that she's now a woman, right? Because she's no longer a child. So in other words, Barbie stands for the whole movie is from the perspective of Barbie looking through the looking glass and seeing who the person is who handles her. Yes? And so now it becomes when Barbie is no longer handled, it's because that person is growing up. They're going to become a woman. So, of course, Barbie, when she herself grows up into the world, is going to this is the sign of it, right? She goes to that appointment, I guess. Now, um, for me, the whole thing is a kind of existentialist rite of passage. I mean, uh, obviously, I don't, yeah, I don't, I'm not saying I agree with this or promote this. I mean, obviously, Jean Paul Sartre and existentialism is a kind of a it's probably too easy of an interpretation. Forgive me, but it's like it's a non it's a nihilistic viewpoint of nothingness in the world that is an inversion or opposite to what we see as the hope in a Christian paradigm. It just is. Yes. But the rite of passage in the movie, yes, Jethro, comes from, a rite of passage, right, in real life is where a a child um understands that death exists, right? It's the moment where we realize we are not permanent. We don't live forever, and death exists in a real sense. That's what a rite of passage is. Yes? So, loss of innocence, especially like in literature or in real life, losing one's innocence is not something pervert. It's not that. It's not some sort of active experience that you partake in. It's not something that deals with sexuality or anything like that. Loss of innocence means that you are aware that you are no longer in the Blakean sense in the world of innocence, but you're in the world of experience. Now of course that's also Gnostic, but but you know what I mean. It's where when you're young, if you're 5 years old and your great grandmother dies and you're playing on your big wheel and the funeral's going on, you're aware there's a funeral and you're aware that your great grandmother died, but you're unaware of like the sadness or why people are if you cry, it's because everyone else is crying or because of the situation. You don't know in your heart what's happening. When it's time for the reception, everybody goes back to the house, you're gonna go get on your big wheel and play. You're just not aware of that. But at some point, when you're about twice that age or a little bit older, and you experience the death of a loved one, it is completely different. And I got to say that's another reason. I won't say too much. It's too much personal information, but that for me, um, is something that affected me so deeply in my life that I think about it on a daily basis. It occurs to me every single day. Um, it occurs to me every single day exactly what it was like when that happened for me. I still remember it. I was 12 years old, and I remember it in my active brain, in my heart, and in my soul. I remember it so deeply, and I'm sure everybody else here does too, because I remember I remember the exact moment where I realized I was no longer a child and that I was a grown human being and that death existed. I remember that exactly. So, yeah, how is other people from No Exit from Sart? Uh, one thing Sart said was, which is kind of clever, is um, to eat is to appropriate by destruction. He said, "Oh, that was interesting." I've got a copy of Sartre's book on Cuba here, which is interesting. I read that wasn't when I was in 11th grade. It's interesting because he goes and hangs out with Castro. But yeah, that yes, yeah. Crystalline says, well, she said what she said. Not a kid, but wow, it makes you grow up. Yes, yes, it does. It makes you grow up, and you know what else it does? It also it makes you know, not that you didn't know before, but it makes you know, at least for me, that God is real, right? Because, because, you know, when you are God, I hate to be so emo in this, but when I hope this for everybody, that when people are in their absolute lowest state, and when you're there. Maybe you don't. Maybe you've never been in that state, but you know it when you know it. You may even think that you know it, but you don't until you actually know it. When you are at the bottom of the world, okay, when there is nothing, when there's nothing and there's nobody, God is there and he loves you and you you rise, you wake up. Um and and I think that is in a way that's a kind of recurring um that's a recurrence of this experience of like the loss of innocence in our world, because I don't know, but I don't know. They, I don't know. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry to get off track with that, but it's been a tough week. All right, so also some other things I have coming up. Um I'd like to do a Southern Gothic stream coming up. I've got William Faulkner's Absalom. Absalom. Some people have really been asking, and thank you um, for the suggestions about what to cover. Some people have been constantly suggesting things, and I listen, and I see that. I always see that, and I appreciate that every time somebody suggests something to read or to watch or to cover here. So please keep doing that. Um, so people have been really throwing out there William Faulkner. So I'm going to do a William Faulkner. I did one William Faulkner stream. Remember, I talked about Wild Palms, but I'm going to do another one on Absalom, Absalom, because it's the Southern Gothic text. I've also got Heidegger's poetry, language, and thought. I'm going to not do a stream on this, but I will incorporate this into the other streams. Shouts out to our friend Exposing Powerful Lies out there, our friend Jerry. Jerry, we were talking about you earlier. I was talking about you earlier, and how I don't want to go over it again, but I would just say, thank Jerry's my good friend, and he is always there for me. And so again, shouts out to Jerry, Jethro, Block Party, Mikhail, Maddie, and then to Maddie Gershom, who is one of my just awesome. You know, you meet people at the weirdest points in your life. You really do, and you ever meet somebody and you just vibe right away, and you just know that they understand, right away. I wish I could explain to you some other things that happened to me, this week, but, I'm not going to, but, there's nothing better than meeting somebody who understands you right away. But you know what's better than that? You know what's even better than that? Is meeting somebody and they, are on the receiving end of that, right? Where somebody is talking to you and you are the person who gives that for them. So, hopefully I can do that for people, you know. Hopefully we all can do that for people. But shouts out to Maddie Gershom out there. Shouts out to my friend Luke out there who is has a brilliant mind for this sort of thing. And really I need to get him on the stream also to talk about this stuff because the Barbie thing, one thing in the Barbie thing that is interesting is that, I had this Kubrick group with my friends, and my friend Luke pointed out a long time ago that when the trailers for Barbie came out, that there was gonna be some sort of weird Kubrick Barbie connection. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, "What are you talking about?" Well, there is. The movie begins as a Kubrick movie. Speaking of Kubrick movies, I saw a GQ no, an Esquire magazine headline. It said, "50-year-old dads everywhere rejoice. Trailer for Ridley Scott's Napoleon comes out." And I thought, "Well, I'm not a 50-year-old and I'm not a dad. Fuck yeah. I'm so pumped for this movie, dude." I really am. Huh, I you know, I just cannot wait for this movie. I've always been fascinated by Napoleon. My friend Jeremiah, who I've talked about a few times in this, um, who, is a graduate of the War College, and, is an actual is an actual is an actual real life warrior, combat veteran, talked to me about Napoleon and how Napoleon is the perfect strategist. And so, I've got a couple great books on Napoleon up there. And I had a great Napoleon book back in 2006 that I was 3/4 of the way through, and I left it on the damn plane in the back of the seat. I could not believe full of notes, and I could not believe I left it on the plane. Um, but I've got a bunch of other Napoleon books up there, and my dad, also is an expert in Napoleon. He knows everything about Napoleon. So I'm gonna be interested to see this film. And of course, that's another Kubrick film, right? Um, there is a Napoleon film called Desiree with Marlon Brando I probably need to rewatch. But there's not really many great films on Napoleon besides what? Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? Remember he's in that? Um, need to do yo, shouts out to our friend out there, Hollywood Will Burn. Yo, listen, guys, please go follow our friend on Instagram out there. Hollywood Will Burn says, have you done a Beau is Afraid analysis? No, I haven't, and I really need to. I need to do that. Ari Aster. I also didn't do The Whale. Should probably watch The Whale and do one for the Aronofsky film. And there are some good films that you find. There's some diamonds in the rough here. And I watched a few other ones this week. I can't talked about Hesher, and there's a few other ones. But I also probably need to cover Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, which is actually a decent film. It's Jake Gyllenhaal, but I like that movie. It's pretty good. Um, but I need to probably take a look at those. So, oh yes, Jethro, thank you so much. Jethro brings up one of the films that I watched this week, which I'm going to talk about just briefly for a second. Before I get to that, I also talked about last time I was with David Patrick Carey, Church of the Eternal Logos. I talked about how I got a copy of Harold Bloom's The Western Canon, which, yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I went to the bookstore and got a couple of books, and this one's like $1,500 online. I mean, I'm sure you can find cheaper copies of it, but this is a first edition, hardback copy of, the Western Canon, the Books and Schools of the Ages, and if anything, if any one person sort of guides my critical analysis and my own paradigm for exploring literature, it would be Harold Bloom. And I actually met Harold Bloom one time, I remember at the 92nd Street Y at that Audrey and Rich poetry reading. He he hated this reading more than I did. He made all these noises. And that guy, by the way, looked like the whale. He really did. But Harold Bloom is one of the smartest literary people to live. And you can agree or disagree with his analysis, but I mean, he was a Gnostic. He writes all of his books in sort of not this book, but Omens of the Millennium and Shakespeare: The Invention of the Human. He has a Gnostic sort of paradigm, but he talks about how you know he's the one who came up with the description of the American religion, right? Which is a kind of weird combination of Pentecostalism and Gnosticism. And he says that that's probably true based on Moby Dick. So, uh, yeah, how to read and why, my friend Maddie says should be on everyone's doorstep. I mean, Harold Bloom he guides my understanding of literature. So I'm gonna dive through lesser canon here because he talks about the great works of the canon, and that's what we do on this channel. Is I'm taking you through an odyssey of the works in the canon. That is what we do. So, so last thing before we go, um, so totally unrelated, but since we're talking about film, is that before I get into this, please, you guys think about supporting me. Please, please, um, support me through the links that Jethro is putting there in the chat. If you're watching this later, you can look at the channel description or the video description. I need your support so I can continue buying books, doing streams. I need to get a I really need to get a I need to get a Vocaster and upgrade my audio. Um I got my GoPro working, but it's not for this one, but I got it on my other computer working well, but I can't fit it into OBS yet. I'm trying to upgrade everything just to make it more, more aesthetically pleasing for everybody. And to dedicate my time to writing. So please think about supporting me. Yeah, also because man, I crushed a dollar menu earlier tonight. Dude, I got a dollar menu from McD's. I got that Grimace McSludge burger. Can I get the new McD's McSludge? I got that new McSludge burger and fries. Dude, I crushed this thing. Crushed it. So please support me so I can get more Cigs, Red Bulls, and McSludge burgers. Um, no, but okay, so last thing here before we get going. So, um, so one thing I did this week because I had myself a well, I'll just say moment of a long extended moment of uh crushing um let's say crushing mental pain. Okay. And one thing that I did was my friend Jeremiah said, "Listen, man, just go home and put on a movie and just chill." Because like you guys, my mind is always running on this train and it's very hard for me to turn my thoughts off. I have a, running train of thoughts of my mind just doesn't it just keeps going at times and it's hard to shut it off sometimes. And so there's so much content out there. There's so much for us to dive into and explore. I mean, I didn't even touch on the Long Island Ripper case because it's unrelated to this. So I'm not even going to bring that into it. But I did like a 2-day deep dive into the Gilgo Beach massacres and the Long Island Ripper, and that it just when you deal with that stuff all the time, um, I don't think any of us should shy away from the dark material, unless you want to. I mean, and there is something to be said for knowing your limits, right? And knowing what's good for you mentally because there's only so much you can do and be aware of. But that really led me into a dark sort of dark hole. But he said, "Go home and chill out and just watch something that you don't have to think about." Have you seen Dune? And I said, "Yeah, man, I saw Dune." I'm not a Dune guy. Like I haven't read Frank Herbert. I haven't read Dune, and I've seen the film. I saw it in the theater, and I've actually seen it like 3 times since then. But I was like, "All right, good call," I'll see. And he told me, he said, "The movie it's a brilliant movie." He kind of explained some basic things about it in his viewpoint. So what I did was I came home and I turned on the movie Dune, and I gotta say that uh he was right. My perspective on Dune did a complete 180. It did a total 180. It's like I had new eyes to see. And I don't know if it was I think part of it was the language, the Benny Gesserit and the Katie Prime and the words in the story are really potent. It has potent language. And I realized that it is a brilliant movie. It's very, very good. It is very good. And I think that I think that Jethro and Jerry also are not Dune guys, they say. And I was the same, and I think that you should go back and give it a rewatch, and really, I only got that because of my state of mind and because of, the fact that I let it play, but I actually watched it 3 times in one day, and, that sounds obsessive, but I wasn't doing anything else, and I was just kinda sleeping, and I watched it 3 times in one day, and it is very, very good. It is first of all, Skarsgård, plays, Hackett in the movie, and y you know, I realized full on that his character Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. I mean, it is specifically Kurtz. The way that he does his hand over his massive skull, and he's a combination of Kurtz and Judge Holden from Blood Meridian. He is those 2 characters. He also bathes in the black goo, and, he rises in a kind of and he rises and floats with this long kind of slug trail, of his garments in a kind of, really weird, dark, satanic, Nibiru, um, apotheosis of megalomania, and, I thought that that was really, really well done, because their whole planet is dedicated to the destruction, of the good guys, and they're complete darkness. I thought that the film was good also because it's obviously there's an allegory there for the conquest of the Middle East and oil, obviously, because, he bathes in the black goo and all that stuff, but you do realize that I know it's a hot take, but you do realize that spice is adreno. It is. Um, the way that it controls the way that it changes the pupils of the people who use it. In the film, in the book, they get a deep blue eye, but it reminds me of the, black eyeballs of the elites. Also, it helps with space travel, and it helps them to they extend their life, right? They have this weird extension of life. It allows them in a kind of, weird transhumanist, uh, intoxication to live forever, and also it when they inhale the spice, it shows the way that the synapses connect in their brain, like their pineal gland is exploding with like a gold dust. And it has like everything has a kind of an amber hue and turning into a gold. And they do this at everything else is below that. Everything else is under spice. It says that the spice market, and time has gone on for so long that it's been absorbed into people's bloodstreams, right? It also kind of is an allegory for I know I said the word. It's also a it's an allegory for the spice trade, right, in Java and the colonialism of the 19th century and all that stuff. But but I think that it's much more metaphysical and kind of spiritual than that. And Villeneuve, Denis Villeneuve, is I think a masterful director. I've loved his direction, since yes, and Maddie says the Benny Gesserit seeding the universe, with lies is a very interesting feature. Great point. Shouts out to my sister who says, "Sorry, I missed this. I'm in Oppenheimer." She's my sister watching. She went. Well, listen, do you guys know anybody else that's based in my sister? She went full on Barbieheimer this weekend, right? So she's doing the work that I wasn't able to. So I'm glad that she's able to do that. So I'm going to come back, by the way, this week with an Oppenheimer analysis. Probably Tuesday night. I don't think I'll have time to watch the film and get it all done to movie tomorrow night. Um, but yeah, I like Denis Villeneuve. Jay actually one of my favorite analyses that he did is his analysis of the movie Enemy. You guys, you may have missed that. You should go back and read his analysis. I think it's an essay. Read his essay analysis of Enemy because he talks about Louis Buñuel and the Surrealists and why the giant spider appears in that movie. If you haven't seen that movie, that is a great movie. It's about it's a doppelganger movie, and I was aware of the movie before it came out because of course, I read a lot, and I used to read magazines. Like I used to read the men's magazines, sort of voraciously, and I still have my copy of when Jake Gyllenhaal was filming that. He had just done Prisoners, and they were interviewing him while he was filming an Enemy. It was actually called An Enemy at the time, but it's a very dark movie, hard to understand. So Jay did a great breakdown of that movie. Denis Villeneuve did that. He did Prisoners. Um, he did Arrival. He did Sicario. I mean, he's great. He is very good. Um, so I also though watched the movie. I watched the David Lynch Dune, and I've always really not. Oh, of course he did Blade Runner 49. Thank you, of course. Thank you, Jethro. He I have not liked the David Lynch Dune, and here's my reason why. Because um it's not that I didn't like it. It's that I made the mistake of seeing the film when I was, I think, 6 years old on the movie channel at my grandparents' house. And um that was the first and only time that I watched the movie, and that's different than if you saw the movie for the first time when you were a grown up. When I saw it when I was 6, I didn't know I was 6, and I was watching the movie channel because they had it on in the back bedroom, and I could watch movies. And I turned it on, and, I just remember the scene of when they pulled the things off of the guy's nipples, and his, like, chest exploded with blood goo, and I it scared me so badly. It was terrifying to me. So I've always it's been deep seated in my psyche since then to stay away from that movie. So I always have. But I rewatched it the other night. So I watched Dune 3 times, and then I watched the David Lynch Dune to cap it off that night. And here's what I have to say about David Lynch Dune. So it's very strange because it's like you kind of think, kind of you go into it thinking, who gave this guy millions and millions of dollars to make this movie, right? Now, what I mean by that is this, that it's it's a Dino De Laurentiis production, and I think what he's doing with it, I think this is brilliant. I think what he's doing with it is it is the last, it is the final major set piece 50s Spartacus Cleopatra film in the world. It's the last one. Okay, and what I mean by that is that there's obviously sword and sandals epics and all that, there's all that stuff. But the way that the film looks is like you're watching a 1950s colorized film, with set piece stage production. And so, like, the Villeneuve movie is kind of a shot for shot remake in a way, right? Um, Now it's just following the text. But, like, for instance, in the new one, when, Timothy Chalamet is in the room and, Josh, uh, um, uh, Brolin comes into the room and he says, "Don't sit with your back to the door. How many times have I told you that?" And he says, "I knew you were coming. I could tell by the sound of your footsteps." It's very serious, and you believe them. You believe that this guy is training this kid who's gonna be the future. He's the chosen one. He's Neo, they even refer to him as the Messiah, in the movie. But in the David Lynch one, Kyle MacLachlan is sitting there and the 3 guys come into the room, but the way they come into the room is like, I can just imagine that if I were an actor on the set, um, I can imagine it's just like if you were rehearsing at the Globe Theater, right? Or at the Old Vic, and you're backstage, and the doors open, and they say, "Go, go," and it's your time to go on the stage, and they kind of come out in a line, and they talk to him, and he turns around and he says, "I knew you were coming. I could tell by the sound of your footsteps." Totally different tone. but it's like we see the innocence in this character, even though it's weird. There's a juxtaposition between the innocence of his character and yeah, I know it's not shot for shot, not even close. I said it's a kind of shot for shot. Then I qualified that by saying that it's guided by the text. But what I mean is that the set pieces and the way that it is shot for shot is very, very similar. It's like the vision of the movie was we're taking what Lynch did and we're putting a whole new aesthetic on it. We're putting a whole new tone, and we're staying true to the text. And it's kind of a spin on the original one. One way that it's not shot for shot, by the way, is the final battle at the end. That was it's so ridiculous in the Lynch version because it's like in the new one you get this intense battle, and in the old one you get the scene I'm talking about where they're doing this, they're pulling on the things. When I watched that, I'm like, "Dude, am I tripping? What is happening? What is happening in this movie? What are you pulling on?" It's so weird. But Lynch does that purposefully, though, right? Um, yeah, the duel with Sting is funny because again, it's like we get all the characters on stage. And it's theatrical, but it's filmed. So it's like we're watching Spartacus, or we're watching a guy make Dune like on a Spartacus set in the future. And what I mean by it's the last Dino De Laurentiis, major staged film production is that it's literally the last because it's so far in the future. So I guess David Lynch was saying, listen, he was like, I'm gonna make the most fucked up movie in the world, right? And they were like, okay, do whatever you do. So it's like, on the one hand, he's paying Uh, he's giving an homage to the great filmmakers of the past and also to the studio and to Laurentis and to the producers and the money people, and he's saying, "I'm gonna make a big stage production." But then he gets his artistic vision in there by saying, "I'm gonna put this stuff that's so fucked up. It's so fucked up. It's gonna be fucked up. It's so messed up, right? It's so weird, but it should be that way. Form and content, form plus content equals meaning because the way that spice affects people, especially the way that it affects people when, um, they withdraw from it, because that's lethal, right? But their minds are going crazy, and they're on the outworld. They're literally in the outlands. They're on the outer worlds. So time and space are all distorted, and so our vision of it has to be distorted. And there are easy ways of doing that, and there are interpretive artistic ways of doing that. And I think that Lynch certainly gives us his vision, which I think is pretty admirable. Um, and Sting is obviously like, I want to, put me in this movie. I'll need to be in the movie. And they're like, we're gonna get Sting. He can draw a crowd. He's a guy. He's a he's a headline guy, right? Um, Jason says Lynch's work grows on me though. Yeah, the other Lynch movie that really deeply affected me was Lost Highway. I just think Lost Highway is so terrifying. It is so scary. I saw that when I was a teenager. I think I was like my friend Paul, was like, "You should watch this movie, man. It's called Lost Highway." He gave me a copy of the VHS, and, I think I ripped a few bong hits or something and then watched that movie. A big mistake, big mistake. Oh my god. So, you know, um, anyway, yeah, so that's it. I know we got away from Barbie there. We got into, some other things. We got into David Lynch and some other things. But, yeah, please support me, you guys. Please go back and watch or listen to my first hour yesterday with Joseph Arthur. I think those are really good. I mean, I know I'm in it, but I think it's really good because I vibe with him. He's a cool dude. That guy's cool, and we obviously have completely different. We probably have different paradigms of things and viewpoints, but that's okay. And the things that we agree on very important things, and, he is a very good at, running a show and doing interviews and asking questions and talking. I mean, he's really, really good. He's really cool, so he's a cool guy. And also shouts out to Boiler Room crew out there because, everybody knows how they're awesome. Um, yeah, Chronosis says, "Barbie, sci-fi or fantasy?" Well, um, again, this is the interesting thing here. Good question. I think this is the interesting thing. I'm not a parent. I'm not a I don't know anything about, raising kids and all that stuff, okay? But, uh, I do have a channel, and I've said repeatedly to people out there that, like, this is for grown people, right? Although we're covering books and why you should read, how you should read, it's important for young people to read. This is for grown people because grown people need to read. You do. You need to read, and it's important, man. Listen, probably everybody out there is already reading scripture. I mean, so what what else do you need other than that? First of all, um, and you're reading that. So honestly, you could read the book of Matthew, or you could read, one verse in any you could read any random part of the Bible and just focus on that, and that is more valuable than a billion other things, right? That's it. Now, the great thing about literature is that, literature, especially literature we've covered here, derives from that. Obviously, it's taken from the Bible is the most important and best-selling book of all time, right? For however many years, that's the only thing people ever read or had. If they had one book in their possession, it was I mean, the printed book, right, didn't even come around for 1400 years after Christ. Yeah, the printing press. So, you know, um, there's a reason why all literature alludes to or derives from that. And then it starts to sort of metastasize, out as far as people thinking. I mean, the one thing I forgot to mention, my friend Luke freaking out is that in when we were talking in our Kubrick book group about Kubrick has sort of continuous mentions or allusions to Rudyard Kipling. Now we've done Rudyard Kipling. We did A Man Who Would Be King on this channel, but there was a Kipling allusion in the movie, and there was also there were a few biblical allusions in the movie. One is obviously the this is kind of a stretch, but the dawn of time in 2001: A Space Odyssey is obviously supposed to be a kind of a panspermia evolutionary, ape man to space dawn of time. But dawn of time for us obviously the implies Genesis. It's the beginning. It's the beginning, right? And so the movie begins in the beginning. Um, it also involves a hero's journey, and you know, apart from the apart from the Joseph Campbell mythical and archetypal hero's journey. I believe that the hero's journey is all based on Christ, right? It's about um, your apotheosis as a human is about reaching reaching upwards, and so there are a few allusions. I think there. I'm trying to remember if there was a Corinthians allusion in the film. But regardless, there is a Kipling allusion in the film because she said, "Never the twain shall meet," right, which is Kipling. East is east and west is west, and never the twain shall meet. Um, so I thought that was interesting. That's also interesting in light of the kind of colonial criticism in the movie, the criticism of colonialism in the movie, which is implied and also specifically stated by the tween character, by the girl. Um, I got bit by an ant. Oh. Um, So, so anyway, so that was that. What else? Anyway, so yeah, this is a channel for grown people, and the movie is not a movie for kids. It's just not. It's not that it's gratuitous. It's not that it's um you know it, it's much more subtle than that, but it's obvious. The theme of the movie is yes, Northrop Frye. I've got Northrop Frye's book on Shakespeare here. Roscoe says Northrop Frye's The Bible and Literature is an excellent source for interrelationship between spheres of learning. Thank you for putting that in the chat. Appreciate it. Northrop Frye and Harold Bloom are kind of the twin pillars of uh, criticism of literary criticism. So yeah, it's not a movie for kids. Your little kid, your daughters who play with Barbies are not going to appreciate this movie. And it's not even that. It's that it's not for them. It's actually, if you're a mom and you played with Barbies, it's actually meant for you, or it's meant for the Sigma Chads out there who go to see it and go, "He's literally me," um, like I've described in the movie. So, but anyway, I think that this is a movie that this is the type of movie that we should be talking about and discussing, and because it's obviously important in terms of culture. Not that I really care about pop culture, but it is important. So let's look at some super chats real quick. Um, and then we will be on our way. It's the start of a new week coming up. Okay, good. I just got my podcast link for the for TNT Radio. So I'm gonna put that in there. And shouts out to Kristen out there who sent me $5. Thanks for the stream. Thank you so much, Kristen. Always appreciate your generosity. Shouts out to again to Amptown who sent that $20 via PayPal. Really appreciate you as always. Thank you so much. You are the best. Um, shouts out to Technor Graphics. Our friend Mixkey sent me $10 last stream. I think I shouted him out, and to Real John Connor, who sent me $20 last time. That was 2 weeks ago. Thank you so much for that. Um, let's see. Let me put this Oppenheimer link in here real quick. I mean, not Oppenheimer. I'm gonna put the link for the podcast in here. So you guys can go check it out if you want to. Okay. Here you go. This is yeah, this is from last night, an hour long with Joseph Arthur. We were talking about literature and all sorts of things. Um Shouts out to Jason out there who's always a supporter of mine. Always appreciate you. Thank you so much. Y'all's generosity is very kind. And of course, really I need to go get something to eat. um So, thank you so much, and let me just check, see if I got anything in the actual super chats. I know a couple people sent some things, including our friend Maddie at Digital Minefield. So, Digital Minefield sends 199, and he said, "Dudes rock." Shouts out to Elias, who sent, 4.99. He said, "The younger one even saw it too, so I'm gonna have to hear about from her too." LOL, hope you're doing well and get through this rough patch. God bless. Thank you, Elias. Really appreciate you, homeboy. He also sent 4.99, bro. I heard all about it. My daughter wouldn't stop talking about this joint earlier. Let's go. He says, well, that's good. Elias, thank you so much. Appreciate you. You are great. Shouts out to our friend Chase Haggard out there. Czar Nicholas II, who says, can you please do the review in Barbie voice? It will help it be more immersive. I should have done the whole thing in Barbie voice. It would have been so awesome. That's my Barbie voice. Um, you know what? But my message to you, Tristan Haggart, is you know what? You are enough. Okay. I love your Kenergy. My last thing is that, dude, um, there are all these different types of Barbies in the movie, obviously, and Margot Robbie is the alpha Barbie. But huh. Black Barbie is super fine, y'all. She's so hot. I mean, go watch the movie. She really is. What's her name? What's this actress's name? Her name is she really oh my god. I watched the movie and I was like, whoa, this girl is super fine. Uh um her name is Alexandra Ship. I like her. She's cool. She's cool. And again, Gosling, I mean, he killed it in this movie. He really did. I liked his performance. It's, it's pretty easy to fall into, if you were an actor in this film, if you were to fall into this movie, kinda think, "Oh, it'll be kitschy and fun, and, I'm just gonna do this movie." But, it's an extended role. It's an ex yeah, Jason says, "You better not let Charlie XCX hear you." Yeah, I better not, because that's my dream girl of all time, and Charlie XCX is actually on the soundtrack. She does the song Speed Drive. Um, I was disappointed about what they did with my girl's song in the movie because she's breaking out of the Mattel Corporation, and they get in the car, and they're driving, and, like, the music should have been banging, dude. There's nothing better in a movie than when you hear an unexpected song and it's loud. Oh, speaking of which, last point. Um, there's one part in the movie that is so good. She goes back and, she's talking to Ken, and Ken says, "Listen, do you mind if I play guitar at you for, like, 4 hours?" And, of course, this is a take on the, Animal House, "Dude, I gave my love a cherry." Right? But, um but it's funny, dude. He sits there, he's all of a sudden, his costume changes and he's all in black, and he, he's playing the guitar and he's singing, and of course, Gosling sings, um, because remember he was a Disney kid, so he does a dance routine in the movie, which is kinda funny, but, um, yeah, Greta Gerwig says, "Growing up, I love that song." It's a Rob Thomas song, "Push." Push was co-written by the band's frontman, Rob Thomas. I never liked Rob Thomas. I never liked any of that. But I do like unexpected songs in movies that are and actually, um, when he started singing this song in the movie, my first thought was, "That is the perfect song for this movie. That is perfect." And, it says, "I love that song." Director Greta Gerwig tells USA Today, "I was like, 'This is my rock and roll. Dad, enjoy The Who, but these are my guys." And it wasn't until college that I actually thought, "What is that song about?" Just thinking about 13-year-old me singing along and really meaning it, I was like, "That is so interesting." I looked it up, and in a way, Thomas was playing a character. It's almost like a story song, um, which is pretty interesting. And in the movie Bring It On, Kirsten Dunst has a douchey boyfriend, and there's a poster of Matchbox 20 in the background. What are the lyrics to this song? Hold on, let me look up the lyrics real quick because Imma see what she's talking about. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. "Yeah, I don't know if I've ever been good enough, but I'm a little bit rusty. I think my head is caving in." Okay, okay. Alright, so I get it. So I get it because the song is expressing not only a kind of a teen angst, but it's obviously expressing what Barbie's crisis becomes in the movie, which is that she's not good enough to be a representation of this thing that was supposed to be perfect for her handlers, for little girls, but also she doesn't know if she's good enough to be a real girl, right? And Ken doesn't know if he's good enough to um be a man, I guess, right? I guess that's what it's about, right? I mean, in a way, isn't that a pretty common thought for all of us, right? I don't know if I'm good enough. Um, and I don't know if I've ever been really loved by a hand that's touched me, and I feel like something's gonna give, and I'm a little bit angry. Well, this ain't over. No, not here. Not while I still need you around. You don't owe me. We might change. We just might feel good. I want to push you around Well, I will. I wanna push you down. I wanna take you for granted. I wanna take you for granted. Um, she said, "I don't know why you would ever lie to me, like I'm a little bit untrusted." It's funny because this is what we were talking about, um, we were talking earlier about, raising up your friends when you rise up or stepping on those who are around you. And in a way, that is Ken wants to just do back to Barbie what she's done to him, but in a figurative sense, right? But she did it to him sort of invisibly, like through their system. Because honestly, the matriarchy of the matriarchal society of Barbie world has kept Ken down and made him feel like he's not good enough. And now he wants to push others around in a sense, I guess. Um, I don't know why you couldn't just stay with me. You couldn't stand to be near me when my face don't want to seem to shine because it's a little bit dirty. Well, just don't just stand there, say nice things to me. This is a pretty deep song, actually. Um, because I've been cheated, I've been wronged, and you don't know me. I can't change. I won't do anything at all. Don't bowl me over. Just wait a minute. It kind of fell apart. Things get so crazy, crazy. Don't rush this, baby. That's crazy. That's a pretty deep song. I did not know that. So I'm gonna have to go back and look at the song some more. There's a lot of pain in that song, and I don't mean pain in the sense of you know like an emo, like a late '90s, 2000s emo song where it seems like he's a sensitive guy and he's playing a guitar and he's gonna play for his woman, right? He's gonna make her listen to it. I mean that it's it's actually pretty pain. He's actually full of a lot of pain. Um, and I didn't know that it had that kind of depth. So I don't know if I've ever been good enough. Damn, that hits me pretty hard, man. I think my head is caving in. I don't know if I've ever been really loved. Uh, that's pretty good, dude. That's pretty good. I get that. I get that. I feel that song, man. Not me personally, but um, you know, you know, you can understand that that when a person feels that way. I'll say that, right? You feel that right away. There are definitely people out there who don't know what it's like to be loved. That's true. And everybody wants to be loved. Isn't that what everybody wants? That's what everybody ultimately wants out of everything, right? Everybody wants to be loved. And people want to be listened to. People want to be listened to, man. You know, people's experience sometimes. People talk a lot about experience, you know, uh, my lived experience and all this stuff. So, whatever about all that. But we all have our own experiences in our own life, our own lives. But things, you can understand, you can understand in your soul why people are in pain about certain things, even though you haven't experienced it yourself, obviously. But I think when someone feels like they've never been loved, it's pretty deep. So anyway, yeah, so I'm gonna have to go back and look at us listen to that song. I'm sorry, I got pretty lost in that one for a second. But it's important to think about these things, right? So, all right, y'all, that's about all I got. Thank you so much for being here. We went pretty long here. It's 11:40 here on the Beast Coast. So, um, thank you so much for being here with me. If you want to support me, please just drop a super chat in one of those links. Help them get right to me. PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, obviously the best ways to get right to me, and I can go right now and go get a dollar menu, please. Oh my gosh. Oh, so I love you guys, and I will be back, later on this week. I'll probably be back maybe Tuesday night with Oppenheimer. I gotta get this Jarhead analysis done soon, and we got a bunch of literary stuff coming up. So that's about all I got. I love y'all. I sincerely hope everybody out there, I really do. I sincerely hope, even if you're watching this a year later, God willing, um, I hope if you're watching this a year later, this is the start of, like Scarlett O'Hara says, right? Tomorrow is another day. So I hope everybody out there has a wonderful week. Okay, and I really do. So please leave some comments for me. Smash that like. I love y'all. And to play us out here, here's our homeboy Rooks G has some new music coming up. He's got some new music coming out, and cannot wait to hear what he's got coming up for us. So let's play it out with Slingshot Effect here by our friend Rooks G here. Okay? And that's about all I got. Let's go. Operation Neptune. Peace, y'all.